What is up, dads? And welcome to the Centennial Culture Dads episode. I'm so pumped. We got you guys are about to see how far-reaching the Culture Dad cabal really truly is behind the scenes, how we control everything from our puppet strings. The esoteric order of grill dads is nigh. Before we get started, if you're not signed up already, make sure to go over to Culture Dads. That's culture with a K, culturedads.com, and go follow the links so you can get signed up to the Gumroad and get so many great perks, such as hardback copies of the Imperium Press catalog, Poetic Edda, Ancient City, all the great stuff. You guys already know. Get yourself a hardback copy today with the sign up on the Gumroad. Get it on your shelf. Help us keep the lights on. Help Imperium Press save the Western canon from those who want to erase it. Scumbags. Plus, you get Culture Dads every single week. You can't beat it. How can you beat that? You can't. You want to check out what I'm
beat that?
You can't beat it. You want to check out what I'm doing? Make sure you go to thebizarchives.com and buy based fiction. Buy books. Follow us on Twitter and Telegram at the Bizarchives. What is up, fellas? We got everybody. Mike's here. Brendo's here. Dime's here. We got the golden one. Mr. Marcus is here. We got the Wessex Nomad. We got the dads pulling up. What's up, fellas?
Yeah, it's good to be here, mate. Absolutely buzzing. So yeah, thanks for inviting me. Really glad to be here, mate.
Every time I speak with you, Dave, you make my energy level sound outright trans.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Like, Dave is the king of plugs. Like, if there was a Wayne Gretzky of plugs and doing the intros, that's Dave. He's never dropped the ball even once on that. I think that what we need to do is we need to start selling a course on how to shill. And Dave's gonna head that one up. Our boy Tom just dropped a course on how to do Germanic heathen ritual. We're gonna do a course on how to shill, and Dave's gonna head that one up because he's the fucking master when it comes to that.
It's gonna be a bunch of Macho Man promo videos.
You are the ultimate salesman. It's true.
Thank you. So let's get cooking here. We got AMA. We got a lot of questions and everything. But first, I want to go around and check on all the dads. Maybe some of you folks listening here might not be familiar with some of the work of these fellas. So let's go around. Let's start with Brendo. Let the folks know. Let them know who you are and what you've been working on, stuff like that.
All right. Yeah, Brendan, here's my name. I run the Aureus Press, and I publish books. And I should post and make videos like everybody else, but nonfiction books about culture and art and things. And lately, I've been like Dave. I have been making pulp fiction compilation magazines, science fiction, Aegeon, it's called, and it's all available on Amazon. And yeah, that's enough for me, I guess. It's more or less it. You don't want me going to the dad stuff. I don't.
Yo, Dimes, what have you been up to, bub?
Oh man, well, again, thank you so much for having me here. I'm a huge fan of Dad. I had no idea who was going to be here at this start. I'm like, I hope it's not a bunch of scum. It turns out I'm actually awestruck by the lineup we got here. I'm very, very happy to be along. Dimes from Blood Satellite, bloodsatellite.ca. That's my shilling there beside my name. I'm pretty good at it too. Also connected to that. That's a weekly show. I'm a dad as well. I got a online publishing thing, just a website of writing called Vanguardist Journal at vanguardistjournal.com. And we got an online store at goodsuffer.com. And I'm not going to take up too much of your time because I know some people have a hard exit here. So moving on to the next one.
Mr. Marcus.
All right. Yeah, pleasure to be here with you, Culture Dads. So yeah, you can find me on YouTube and Twitter, the golden one. And yeah, just humbly trying to work towards pushing the Overton window a bit more in our direction. And yeah, so videos, podcasts, posting on X and stuff like that. So the usual stuff, I guess.
Also fashion. Everybody, guys, you got to go over to Legio Gloria. This guy here, Mr. Marcus does a lot of great things. He does stuff with fitness. He's all over the place with all of his interests and areas of expertise. One of my favorite things that he does, and it is something nobody else has gotten into yet, is fashion. He has really, really high quality clothes. So go over there, check out legiogloria.com and buy some nice clothes. I highly suggest the linen button-ups. That's the only garment I got, but it's great stuff.
If I could just interrupt you there. So like I said, we have an online store at goodsuffer.com. It's t-shirts and hoodies and all that. But when I saw the Legio, like it's like the sweatsuits, it's like the workout athleisure wear, I always said that's the level that we should aspire to be, which is to say that I think that's like the standard of clothes coming out of our space from what I've seen.
Yeah, it all looks
much
amazing.
appreciated.
It looks
Yeah,
very, very patrician.
Much appreciated. Yeah, it gladdens me to hear. So yeah, of course, working a lot with that as well, and yeah, some other stuff. But yeah.
All right, let's go over to Mr. Nomad. What's up, bub? I saw your video. You went to Rome recently. That was pretty lit, bud.
Yeah, I mean, my time in Rome was very unorganized and very sporadic, and but I think that sort of added to the adventure of it all. To be honest, I was really taken aback by how busy it actually was. I was actually quite ignorant of it. So I mean, I didn't quite realize it was going to be up there with the likes of Paris and London. But nonetheless, Rome is always a good time. I mean, it's one of those really, even though it is a busy city, it still feels very ancient. You know, everywhere you look, you know, buildings that are thousands of years old, and it's like, Rome is essentially like the gift that keeps on giving. So yeah, it's a fun place to go if you've never been there.
If you don't mind me asking, I know you wrote a very fascinating article on this, but is there like a top thing that you're surprised by? You compared it to Paris and London, but what kind of thunderstruck you once you were at Rome?
I mean, I can remember as soon as I got off the metro from the airport into the city, like, immediately with how busy it was. And that was the first thing. I mean, like, I knew that it was a popular city. I mean, I've been to a lot of, like, you know, capital cities around Europe, but this is definitely one of the most heaving. And what was really frustrating for me with that, when I went to places like, say, the Pantheon, I went to the Pantheon and there was like a bloody, God knows how long the queue was. It would have been required like multiple hours to get into, and this is like a bit of a surprise for me. I actually spoke to friends that had been to Rome previously, and they were saying no, but when I went to Rome, it was definitely not this busy. So I think it's like a sort of like, you know, post lockdowns and stuff. Rome has definitely become very popular within recent years.
No way, that sucks. When I was there was no lineup.
Fallen.
I remember. Yeah, I remember going in without a lineup. The Pantheon. I hope you got in. That's one of the most amazing structure in the world. What shocked me is when I went in is I never knew they Christianized it. That's now a church. I didn't know that. Yeah. I was surprised by that when I went in there.
Yeah, I got into the Pantheon eventually. It was quite weird. I mean, I just basically like ordered some ticket online, and like when I got that ticket online, I had to bloody go to the Pantheon, look for some guy with waving a flag with the company that I bought the ticket from, and then like get it off him, and it was strange. But yeah, it doesn't matter. I got in. That's what really matters.
yeah.
Beautiful.
So,
that's cool.
Yeah, I just discovered Wessex Nomad's channel. Well, I've known about you for a while, but maybe like last year I discovered it, and it is really a true gem. I've talked about this in various places, but traveling was like a huge red pill for me, because just seeing different cultures and traveling abroad, I was lucky enough to have done that when I was a kid, and just seeing all the different cultures and how, you know, different peoples are just like vastly different than others, and actually coming to appreciate that. And then as time goes on, you know, you see the blob, the gray goo that is multiculturalism and everything. It's like threatening to actually like undo all of that and to turn it all into a sort of indistinct soup was a kind of an early, you know, a step on my journey, basically. So I just love the aspect of travel, and, you know, you're doing something that's very unique actually in the sphere, and I really appreciate that.
Oh, that really means a lot for you to say that. And funny you should say that as well. I would say traveling was definitely my like first red pill. Back when I was 13 years old, I went to South Africa, and that was the first time I ever traveled. And that was, even as a 13-year-old kid, that was a massive eye opener. It was just so, I can just remember it was just so strange. Like basically what it was, my uncle got married over there. He lives there now, and he basically flew us over to go to his wedding. And yeah, it was just such a weird contrast, you know, like the lots of homelessness going on, a lot of like very lot of getting lots of dirty looks because we're white and this sort of thing. And I think this
I'm sorry, Mr. Nomad. Finish your statement.
No, I was just saying, like, from like a very young age, this made me ask lots and lots of questions that I wasn't really getting any real answers to. And I think that this is where that sort of the red pill mindset came from a very young age. But I mean, as I'm pretty impressed said, I mean, like, traveling is one of the fundamental things that makes you wiser and enriches you and helps you grow because you're experiencing things firsthand. You can read all the books and watch all the documentaries, but I mean, until you're actually there doing it, it's be it abroad or in your homeland. So, because obviously, what I do with the Western Nomad is predominantly in Britain. This is really the best way to learn. I mean, there's that old cliche that traveling is the best education, and I do for the most part agree with that.
That's awesome.
One of the benefits of living in Canada, though, is that you get all the benefits of the entire world coming right to you. So if you've ever wanted to go to India, I got great news for you. You can actually just go to Toronto.
Oh, jeez.
Well, real quick,
coming back there after years was a bit of a shock.
Well, guys, real quick, we got Mr. Dutton, the Jolly Heretic. How we doing, sir? Good. Well, I guess it's not morning over there. Good afternoon.
It's 4:15 over here. What time is it where you are?
I'm on the East Coast of the United States, so 9:15 a.m.
This is very complicated. So 9:15 a.m. And what time is it in Australia? Which is what
It's 9:15 p.m. here. We're 12 hours apart, Dave and I.
Oh, it's messed up. It's just messed up.
So we tried to have I tried to schedule it for a time that like kind of works for everybody, but really doesn't work for anybody. So this is our we're just kind of like splitting it down the middle kind of thing.
Hell yeah. All right. So, Mr. Dutton, me and you have never spoken before. I've been a fan of yours since you've started your YouTube channel. I subbed to your YouTube channel probably when you were still in triple digits. Like your very first videos, I saw them, and I really, really enjoyed. I still enjoy your content, but I especially got tapped into your content when you started covering things like ADHD. That was like really big for me because I have ADHD, and that's like something in my life that I have to deal with. So I just wanted to say thank you for coming, and it's pretty cool talking to you for the first time. You're muted.
You're muted.
He's gone.
If you
Okay, hi. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm looking into ADHD at the moment, actually, because I'm doing this book about genius, and there's evidence that ADHD is associated with creativity, and the essence of genius is creativity. And I've been looking into that, and I found a study today which found that people that have ADHD experience passionate love more intensely than controls.
Oh, yeah, David.
If they have ADHD combined with autism in particular.
We could talk about all of that at length if you're ever interested in somebody has anecdotes.
Okay, so you have a I'm afraid I'm not familiar with you. So you have a channel as well called, what is it? I can't read what it says in your avatar. The Bizarre
Archive. So I'm Dave Martell. I've been a podcaster for in the scene for a long time, and I run a pulp fiction publishing thing called the Bizarre Archives. We do weird fiction, cosmic horror, science fiction, stuff like that. I'm also getting into making movies. I'm getting into video games. I write poetry. I'm also a musician. So the ADHD creativity thing is right on.
Yeah, ADHD is definitely it definitely seems to be associated with creativity because I'm researching on
Mr. Dunn. If I could ask you a question quickly about that book you're just talking about, I know you probably don't want to spoil it, but just off the top, do you detect any significant difference between ADHD in men and women versus their capacity for genius?
Well, women don't really have a capacity for genius compared to men. I mean, it's a black and white way of putting it, but it's basically genius is overwhelmingly male. So it would be so rare that I would find a female genius that it's a difficult subject to comment on. I suppose that the studies indicated with both autism and ADHD, and they cross over quite significantly anyway.
Yeah.
That there are very significant differences in how males that have autism / ADHD and how females present. And the females are far more sociable, even if they have, let's say, autism. They're far more socially engaged. It's not video games for them; it's parallel role playing and things like that.
No, that's good. I was such a big fan of your book on witches, and I was just in the top of my mind wonder if there was some kind of overlap between witches being sort of like the dark inverse of male genius, but that was just speculation.
Oh, I see what you mean. Well, yeah, I think there may be some truth in that. I mean, in so much as genius is associated with basically autism, subclinical psychopathology, perhaps elements of narcissism. And I suspect that what the archetypal witch may well be is a woman that has borderline personality disorder, such that she's crazy and goes into different states and things like this, and has extreme emotions and so on. And that itself, borderline personality disorder, is to a certain extent, it's simplifying it, but to a certain extent, it's basically how narcissism presents in women.
Can I ask you? Can you think? Is there a single example of a genius woman that you can?
Well, I suppose Marie Curie, maybe. I mean, in terms of scientific genius, not really. And in terms of, I don't know if I would say genius. There are certainly examples of lots and lots of women that you might say in literature would be regarded as having those kinds of traits, semi-geniuses, shall we say. So somebody like Sylvia Plath, perhaps.
But still, there's a far cry from that to Homer or Shakespeare,
or
for sure. James Joyce or something like that. I think a lot of it comes down to the male variability hypothesis, which basically says there's a much narrower bell curve for females than males. So you get a lot of extremely dysfunctional males at the bottom end of the curve, but you also get a lot more genius at the top end. And it's just there's a lot more in the middle kind of thing. We actually talked about this a little bit on the documentary we just did. So.
Yeah, well, a good example for me would be the difference between a highly skilled entrepreneur and a highly skilled manager. Whereas women, I think, can be extremely impressive in a managerial sense, but you lack that sort of where's their Darwin? Someone who can kind of break free and possess almost like a metaphysical iridescent genius versus being really, really, really smart and good in a bounded setting.
I think a lot of it comes down to that they are, like you say, they're very, very good at managing things. They make excellent, chief operations officers,
facilitators.
But at the executive level, at the decision making level, at the top sort of sovereign level, it's a bit different because I think men tend to have vision in a way that women kind of don't. Women excel at organization and that sort of thing, and implementing ideas. But as for coming up with completely unknown ideas and things that have never happened before,
completely new stuff, completely. I mean, you can get some women poets that are amazing poets. Like I don't know, Sylvia Plath, or there's Sophie Hannah or Wendy Cope, but none of them would be regarded as fundamentally original and groundbreaking along the lines of Philip Larkin or someone like that. They are very good, but they're not outstanding, and it's that outstandingness that is associated with these optimum relationships, I think, between intelligence, subclinical psychopathology, ADHD, and that's just less likely among women, and the intelligence is likely to be lower, and so
risk taking probably is
risk taking lower as well. Although it's and again, there's a difference between someone like Larkin. Let's say he's a subclinical psychopath, he takes risks, and the kind of women that seem to be eminent in these areas, like let's say Sylvia Plath, who are sometimes they'll take risks if they've got borderline personality, which they often seem to, when they're in that mode. But when they're in the different mode, they'll take no risk at all, and so you have this huge instability, this sort of lack of a clear sense of self, which is, I think, less, which can be a problem, and which is less pronounced among people that are just subclinical psychopaths.
Yeah, like for example, my wife.
I think that men also tend to see the big picture very well, like in a sort of gestalt kind of way. seeing something that sort of like comes together as like a synergy in itself, rather than seeing like the details. Like women tend to be very good. They're extremely detail oriented, so that they make very good. They even excel in some STEM capacities that really call for that sort of thing. But as for like seeing the whole picture and integrating it in a way that actually brings it all together, I think that's more of a male thing.
Yeah. I'm just back in a sec. I just have to check an egg I'm boiling.
I was going to say, one example, I'm sure this is going to resonate with all of the dads listening, is my wife is phenomenal at the household economy, at taking care of everything here, but she will never understand why I'm trying to drive our family to living on a ship. And it's not her job to understand that.
Are you really doing that? Is that your plan?
Long she doesn't even know that yet, but I'm planting the seeds now.
Right. Well, there's some
Nice.
ideal things about ship living. I know a woman actually that lives on the canal on a boat, and there's a few freeing qualities to that, I guess.
I've known a river dweller as well.
A river gypsy.
It was a man in this case, but
Okay. Yeah, it seems cool. You just move your house when you want, go upstream or downstream, or
So before we start going too far into time, let's start hitting, because we got a lot of questions. Let's do this for the AMA. Let's start rattling off the questions, and if any of the questions seem to be suited for the guests, we could throw them at them. We could answer them, but we got a lot, so we got to start mowing through. So, Mike, I have questions. I forgot to send them to you, Mike. I have questions on my end,
all right.
But if we want to get started here.
I'll just live react. Okay, so we'll start off with the first question that I've jotted down here. It goes as follows. We okay? Everything okay?
Yeah. I was just I have my black background, but I pulled it down because you're all no camera, so I've pushed that down.
All right, we shall continue. As a third culture kid of a European background, one who grew up with parents of two different nationalities or grew up in a non-Western nation, how can he or she practice folkishness, being our rootless, nomadic, and in a sense identityless nature?
So what's their background again? It
didn't say. The third culture kid is defined as someone who grew up with parents of two different nationalities or grew up in a non-Western nation. And I think Dave is in a good position to answer, because although he didn't have two different nationalities, his background is like two different, like European, European backgrounds, one Mediterranean, the one like Northern European.
Two different dads.
No,
my two dads.
Yeah. So, what I would say, firstly, so for folks that might not, I'm American, right? Which is an Anglo diaspora country and culture. I have no Anglo ancestry. My father's family were heritage Americans, but they were Germans. So my father's family are Pennsylvania Germans. They landed here before America was a thing. 1689 was when my great-great-great-great-great-grandfather landed here, right? So they're like Protestant Pennsylvania Germans on one side. My mother's family came over, my grandfather's generation, from Calabria, Italy. So I have these two kind of like very opposing. I always made the joke that I always said I'm a mulatto, because they were biracial or something, because I felt like that. At my family events, it would be like my mom's family's on one side, my dad's family's on the other. My dad's family are very stoic and kind of very straight-laced. Their Church of the Brethren, which is, they're like, they don't really dance. They're not big into music. They're one step removed from Amish. And in fact, Church of the Brethren is in the Anabaptist family, right? So my mom's side, Italian Catholics, they're drinking, they're fighting, they're crying, they're out of their fucking mind, these guys, right? So I always felt like I was like of two worlds. How we practice folkishness today. Now, this is a negative thing, but it also works kind of in our favor. So many of us are deracinated. Both grandfathers on both sides of my family were very devoted religious people. They were both very pious men, involved with their churches and et cetera, et cetera. Their children, being my mom and my dad, were completely like just letting. My dad is like an agnostic. He doesn't even do anything. My mom is like Catholic in name only. So I didn't have a religious experience at all with my parents. And then also, my family went through what all American families, not all, but many American families have gone through, is that the family broke apart after the grandparents died, is deracinated. Neither sides of my family remember the mother tongue. Like my grandfather on my dad's side, he still spoke a little bit. They said call it de Muttersbruch. He still spoke a little Pennsylvania Dutch. My dad speaks none of it. He says like Gesundheit when people sneeze. Like that's all he's got. And my mom's got maybe 3 words. She knows like a few bad words in Italian, some slang words. And like that's it. So completely culturally deracinated, like floating as just like an insect. So what this gave to me was a gift in order to rebuild folkishness. So if you look at me, I look German. I'm German. I'm a German man, right? But I grew up with my mom's Italian family. The Italian Americans were very, very folkish. They have the big weddings. They are very clannish. They have, all of this stuff. You guys have seen The Sopranos, right? You know how they, real life's not quite like that, but you guys know what I'm saying, right? So I got to see folkishness in real life, clannishness in real life. So I get to now rebuild it. So just because you haven't, you don't come from that tradition does not mean you cannot build that tradition. Somebody said something very wise to me one time on the internet. I can't remember who it was, some Anon. And he was just joking, but he was also serious, right? He says, everything is a LARP until you teach it to your children. Then it becomes tradition. So it's fine to fake it till you make it until you teach it to your children and they teach it to their children. And then it's a tradition. And that's how you reinstill folkishness.
So would you say that nursery rhymes and fairy tales and things like that, they're a bit of a joke, but somehow when you teach them to your children, they're learning the messages, which then there are underlying messages, and they're deliberately presented in a fantastical form because that makes things easier to remember.
Yes, very much so. Folktales are
sacred. And it's something horrific to think there's a degree to which folktales and also nursery rhymes aren't being passed on as much. Like I know this girl and her parents never passed on to her traditional nursery rhymes to the extent she doesn't know them. They just sang about traffic lights and how they work and things.
Oh, crap. Marcus, I was going to get Marcus in on this one. That's okay. Hail to Marcus. Hail to the golden one. We love him.
But I see that as well when I'm raising my son as well. There's not a lot of people who raise with the old nursery rhymes, but there's a plethora of books in the bookstore that are trying to teach new lessons in arguably a more synthetic way. They're very, it's like, animation, like these are designed to be like mind candy and instill those. Whereas nursery rhymes, you can revisit them as an adult and they recontextualize themselves. But you can't read a lot of these modern books as an adult and see, like they don't get better as you go throughout your life, whereas good nursery rhymes do, I think.
I think the best thing you can do as a father is get your kid a nursery rhyme or like a medieval era nursery rhyme book. I have one. What's it called? Lavender's Blue. That's a good one. And it's like old British rhymes and poems. And
I think I have that exact same one. It's a sort of reprint of a 1930s or 1950s book or something.
Yeah, I think the illustrations are modern, but they're done in a classical, at least in the version I have. But they're done really well. It's a nice old book. And then whenever I pull it out, the little one starts moaning, "Oh, it's your old-timey book." But as soon as I start reading it, she's absolutely enthralled. Even when you Lavender's Blue.
That nursery rhyme was written by a guy called Thomas Durfee, who was mainly famous for writing like sexual bawdy songs in the 17th and 18th century, of which Lavender's Blue was an example.
I bet you they're excellent. I'd like to see those too.
It was pulverized. Pills to Purge Melancholy. You'll find it on YouTube. Loads of the songs from it.
But even when you read the alphabet in there, like the old timey, and I can tell you something here a bit scandalous actually. But like, so you go, and they love it, and they're enthralled. Like A is for Archer, who shot at a frog. B is for Butcher, who had a great dog, and it goes through it like this, and it's very medieval sounding. And even I don't know how much I can get away with this. It comes to the part U is for Usurer, and in the book it says a miserable elf. And then he has a long nose. I don't think the original word was elf. Is all I'm going to say.
I don't think that's approved by the Darwin guys.
Folktales are one of the deepest red pills that you can have. Actually, there's a reason why we put a thick book of folktales out. It doesn't seem like it at first, but they teach things like that ugliness is bad, that you should not talk to strangers, They teach like natural gender dynamics. They teach like that taboo is the right paradigm for morality, connection to the soil. You need to keep your word. Like all these things, they have very, very wholesome lessons to be taught in them. But just to sort of take a crack at this, answering this very quickly. So the question again was, as someone of sort of like mixed European background, how can we be folkish? And the trad answer from the Indo-European perspective is that you are your father's son. You are the son of so-and-so. Your paternal lineage is your identity. And that's like the beginning, middle, and end of it.
Yeah.
And that is a pretty rigorous answer because it leaves out, one half of your lineage, basically. So the realistic answer, today's answer, is that the traditional Indo-European answer should guide you. It should inform your answer to this question. But what we need today is basically ethnogenesis.
I mean, my children are half Finnish, and of course Finns aren't Indo-Europeans.
Yeah, that's true. Right, they're Uralic. So I mean, there's an even more of a difference there, at least linguistically, anyway.
And I think you caught into something very interesting there. And same thing with Dave, is that regardless of your specific background, I think there's a lot of people, especially young men, that feel as if they're doing this for the first time. And speaking for myself, my family, I come from a long line of shit libs, so nothing was really passed down.
Most of us do.
Yeah, and so if I want to start a multi-generational home, that is a project that a lot of young men are starting for the first time. They're having to learn as adults, which is a strange phenomenon, as opposed to being taught it when you're young, trying to start a legacy and think in ways that they were never taught to think. So when it comes to being folkish, like even if you have 100% pure Anglo ancestry or whatever, a lot of them will be starting a new type of ethnogenesis in their own personal context anyway.
Yeah. And that's kind of what we need, right? Because I think we are standing on the threshold of what would kind of look like, in a modern sense, technologically, but socially and going forward, it's going to look kind of like the migration era of Europe, like in the late Middle Ages kind of thing, where you're going to see fragmentation and devolution. Folkishness basically is tribalism, and leaning into tribalism gets us back to the point where new folkhoods can arise. So if that is the goal, if the goal is living as a folkish person, there's a need to kind of decouple from mass society. And this is a big part of folkishness, where your horizon of care is something that is extremely narrow. Folkishness in the Bronze Age basically looked like your guys are the humans, and everybody else is like kind of something else, which is like pretty extreme. That would make any of us uncomfortable today. And I don't advocate for that per se, but the essential insight of folkishness is that you owe basically nothing to people who are not your guys, and that you exist in a series of concentric circles that demand less and less of you as you go up. And by the time you reach humanity, that less and less has become basically zero. So
yeah, and that's something we've discussed in our show, also how technology has impacted that. And that sounds like a glib thing to say to some people, but how people interact with each other on the digital realm is inherently different. And we discussed this in the book, like Revolt of the Public by Martin Gurry is a good one. So like even people who want to apprehend a form of folkishness, they need to do it in a way that was different from their Bronze Age ancestors or the Victorian ancestors.
Right.
And that presents problems like, how do we define this? And that presents opportunities as well for connections. So there's a flip side to that.
All right. Well, we got a lot really great stuff. We got a lot of questions we got to mow through. So let's keep cooking here. Mr. Mike, do you mind if I read one on my end? I actually have one that pertained to something we were talking about earlier.
yes, by all means. But we just brought somebody else in, so why don't we introduce him and then we can go to the question.
Absolutely. What's up, my man Roland from Cult Games? What's happening?
Hello. I'm very glad to be here. That was pretty spontaneous, but thanks for inviting me. And yeah, doing great.
Excellent. So how's the Great Rebellion doing? You guys getting rich yet?
Well, not rich yet, but I have to say it's been quite a wild ride since we released our game back in February. Yeah, I mean, it's going really well. It was like in the beginning, there was a big spike where we sold a ton of copies and created quite a bit of buzz, and then it kind of stagnated a bit, but in the last like month or so, we have been, we've definitely been picking up some steam again. We've been mentioned. There is this whole, I don't know how much you follow this, but there is this whole like Gamergate 2.0 anti-DEI thing going on, which is a bit, I mean, whatever, but we have been able to basically it all started with this Steam curator page where this guy was just Cabrutus is his name, was listing all these games that contain DEI influences and all this like woke and post bullshit, and he was pointing them out and basically flagging them as something you should not buy, and that gained a lot of traction, and we have actually had the honor of being the only game on that whole list that is actually recommended by him. And he has like a ton of followers on Steam now, so that really boosted us, and that was pretty good.
That's like an inverse ESG. I love it.
Yeah, basically, and that's kind of it's like a seal of approval, so to say. This is a game you can actually buy without all that. So yeah,
I think that
really
ESG
cool.
is actually going to come to bite the system in the ass later on. But anyway, that's a whole other. That I don't want to get down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, let's start getting through the questions.
Yeah,
right.
We got a lot of questions, but welcome aboard, Mr. Roland. We're very
Thank you.
Man, real quick. I'm so proud of you and the work you've done and the stuff that you got done and all that. Very, really, really awesome. So
thank you.
So this is one that got sent to me early on. But he says, Dave, I really enjoyed your long talk about ADHD. So he's talking about like a year ago or something, I did a big long talk talking about ADHD and my theories behind it and stuff like that.
That long to get through it. He's got ADHD himself. He's got to keep coming back to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I've struggled with it my entire life. It was fine when I was a young man, but now that I'm a father trying to run a household, it's a problem. I find myself forgetting important things and driving my wife nuts. How can I be a functional human? Should I take the Adderall? Okay. So this is something that adult men with ADHD. First of all, I don't think ADHD is really a thing. If you guys heard my talk on it, I believe that it is a brain type that is archaic, is an archaic type of brain that has been rendered obsolete by technological society. In primitive times, for probably many thousands of years, we had a role in the tribe, such as hunter or forager. Or so we had some sort of function in pre-industrial society that we no longer do. We have been rendered kind of obsolete. Unless you can slink into some, be an eclectic artist in some sort of something, unless you find a niche, if you're just a guy, having ADHD is very, very hard. It's a myopic of time. You don't perceive time same way other people do. You're very present-minded. You have, it's completely different, right? You have a completely different type of brain than normal people do. The problem is that when you start to become a father and you take on a household, you got bills, you got insurance, you got all these kinds of things, these tedium that you have to keep track of, it begins to fall apart and become a problem. And it really strains a marriage because a wife will starts to feel like she has another child because she does. She has to make sure she clean, you're going to forget stuff. She's got to pick up after you sometimes. She's got to wake you up in the morning. Sometimes you screw your work schedule. Very mundane, basic things you just screw up. So what I would say to you, sir, is firstly, just avoid situations that are going to be problematic for you. Don't take a job that has a changing schedule. You are going to screw that up. If you have to say in the job interview that they can't accommodate, if they can't give you the same schedule every single week, then you can't take the job. Stuff like that. Avoid those types of things because it's going to create even more trouble for you because you're going to go into it like, okay, well, I'm going to do these exercises that I've learned online that I can keep track of and do a better job. You could do it for a little bit, and then you're going to screw it up. And then you're going to hate yourself for it. And then you're going to feel stupid and you're going to feel all this kind of stuff. And then it just piles on. And on top of ADHD, one of the biggest comorbidities of ADHD is depression. So you start beating yourself up. You start getting these cycles of black thoughts, and it's gonna beat you up. And you don't have time for that. You got to be a dad. So should you take the Adderall? This is an edgy take. I don't think you should take the Adderall every day, but sometimes it might be okay to take it once in a while when you have to do something. Fill out a job app. Here's the thing. don't listen to the judgments of the people on the internet. They don't understand you. Okay. When they do a job, like say a job application online that takes them 15 minutes, takes us 4 hours, right? They don't understand that, and they can't understand that, and there's nothing you could do to explain it to them because they have no frame of reference. They don't see reality the same way you do. If
This is
you
why
have
they call him Pill Martell, everybody.
Bill, yeah, taking up my new occupation as a street pharmacist. But anyway, but if you have to, if that's what you got to do to be functional, I would say, but don't. Here's the deal with those pills, dude. I've been getting fed those pills since I was a little kid. I got diagnosed when I was in 3rd grade when they were giving I grew up in the 90s when they were giving all these kids Ritalin. This stuff is literally meth. You can get addicted to it if you take it every day. It will screw up your digestive system. It calcifies the synapses in your brain. It can screw you up, cause brain damage. Take it sparingly. Right? So that's it.
I remember as an adult, because I had very much the same story as you. They tried to tell my mom that I had ADD, and props to her. She told them to go screw. But I remember as an adult, because we went through a phase where we did all kinds of drugs. We're just trying Dexedrine for fun, which is essentially same thing as Adderall. And I remember having an adult's mind, the feeling of what that felt like. And it felt like taking a pill from that movie Limitless. It's amphetamine, obviously, but you felt energetic. You felt focused. You felt like you had a superpower. And it does immediately cross your mind, I should do this every day, especially if you're the type of mind that tends to be prone to that sort of thinking, like, oh, I'm just going to do this every day and feel super powerful. So it could almost immediately turn into an addiction unless you go in knowing that it will and knowing that it's just something you can do sparingly. But your mind in that state will try and run towards that as well. But to give that to a kid, I don't even know what that would feel like. I don't know what that drug feels like with a child's energy and a child's understanding of time. It's terrible. It's a mind fuck.
It can't be good.
I don't know anything about that specific drug itself, but as I understand it, Ritalin or like those kind of ADHD, drugs, they affect different people in different ways. They calm people down who have like hyperactivity, but for the people who don't have it, it actually makes them like more hyperactive. It's kind of weird how that works. So the thing is, like, drug interactions are very complicated. They can affect different people in different ways. I don't really have a take on this question because I don't have ADHD. I've got no experience with it, but I am interested to hear if Mr. Dutton maybe has something to say on that because he understands these like clinical matters. Is there any advice for someone living with ADHD as a dad or as like a functional man? What can they do basically?
And what do you think about my take, Dr. Dutton?
Hi, I'm cooking some steak at the moment in the kitchen. That's very hot fat, obviously.
The theater of the mind of this is amazing.
Okay, well, we can come back to that then. After you've chewed down on that nice medium rare.
About how you need to have routine, and if the routine is interfered with, then you're messed up. Can you expand on that? I thought it was very interesting.
Brilliant.
We'll come back to him.
I think he was asking a question there, but I couldn't hear
I didn't quite understand
that you need routine.
That
you need routine.
Maybe
says
we will...
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
His question was that that if you have ADHD, you need routine. If your routine is messed up, you're thrown off. I think that's what he wanted to know. Am I right?
Yeah. We'll wait till he's done cooking. We'll let him come back to it. Mike, throw us one of your questions.
All right. So the next question here is, what are 5 books you would recommend to a young man to help steer him in the right direction? And there is a postscript question. Any chance of a deep dive into Pennsylvanian/Mid-Atlantic history and culture? Well, I would say to the latter question, we could absolutely do that. We've got one of the foremost experts on that topic here on Culture Dads. I think that we've got a long list of potential episodes, like topics that we want to cover or whatever, and we just kind of hit whatever's hot at the moment, whatever we're excited about. So I'll chuck that one on the list, and we will probably get to it at some point. So top 5 books for young men to help steer them in the right direction.
I would recommend the Golden One's book, Dauntless. Dauntless is fantastic. I have not finished his demigod mentality yet. He actually sent me a copy, which I'm very grateful for. But unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to really finish it yet, so I don't want to give my full opinion on it. But I have read Dauntless, and that is a fantastic book for young men to read. It goes into like health stuff and all kind of stuff. And the way that he writes is very it's very conducive to a young man's mind. He gives he doesn't exhaustively go on and on and on and on. He just tells like little pieces. Other books, but dude, read the Havamal, bub. Read the Havamal. Read. I'm trying to think books that. I would recommend read some Conan. Yeah,
that's a good one actually. Yeah. So for this question, I actually jotted down. I had to think back to this. I jotted down the 5 books that did in fact move me to where I am. And they're going to be unexpected, I think. The first one is actually Darwin's Origin of Species. I remember I got hold of that when I was about 14. I don't know why, but I got like the Penguin Classics version of Origin of Species. And this was a real paradigm shift for me. First of all, just the fact that somebody could be this brilliant and that the writing could be that clear, and reading a book that was written, I think it was in 1850 or something like around that time, just being so impressed at the sheer intellect of this man. And it gave me respect instantly for like Victorian England, and in addition to Darwin himself. And of course, as a paradigm shift in my thinking, sort of like, at the time, being a sort of like on the cusp like of Gen X, or, being a cynical atheist was like a real big deal back then. And of course, I think that's probably what pushed me into reading it. So that really, I started it in a weird way, like me and my other buddy who were like kind of into this stuff started like analyzing our peer groups in terms of like evolutionary theory and stuff like that. It was kind of ridiculous, but it actually, I found that it was very clear and it made a lot of sense. So that kind of, I think evolution, Darwinian theory is kind of in some circles taken to be a kind of like liberal thing or whatever. I think it's actually acid that dissolves liberalism, and certainly it was for me. So the second book that really moved me to where I am is The Lord of the Rings, and this was absolutely massive for me as an aesthetic phenomenon. Just the sheer scope and imagination of this author who created an entire world that was just like from out of nowhere. It just had no precedent, no anything in my mind. That like, it was just so enchanting that I was absolutely staggered by these books, and I read them and I reread them and I loved them. And later on, when I came to discover a book called Beowulf and reading it and just getting all the same vibes as I got from Lord of the Rings, I discovered that he did invent this world, of course, but he didn't invent all of it. That it actually came from a deep prehistory that I had a part of. So that was really important for me, Lord of the Rings. Another one that red-pilled me, so to speak, is the Tao Te Ching, which is a very unusual one for anybody in our scene to point to, but it really did for me. It just came along, was exactly what I needed at the time. It was a spirituality, like a metaphysics, but without all the trappings of, the sort of like weighty historical boring stuff in the Bible or in the Quran or in anything like, or even in Buddhism. It was all of the answers without a lot of the sort of like, if like for anybody that isn't raised in Christianity, reading the Bible is like a very imposing thing, because it's like 750,000 words. There's a lot of names. There's a lot of things. Like it takes place like entirely in a country that nothing about. It's just it was very hard to get my head around. The Tao Te Ching is a book that you can sit down and read in a single afternoon, and it gave me many answers that I needed. And it pointed me towards libertarianism in a very strange way. This is a lot of it in it that's about laissez-faire. and it led me to becoming a libertarian, which was kind of like my first step away from mainstream political theory. And that, of course, continued down that road into like other directions. So the fourth book in my journey was, I would say, Nietzsche's Thus Spoke Zarathustra.
Talk about evolution.
Sorry?
You talk about Darwin's Darwin stuff. It's like, this is like the evolution of youth.
This is my evolution towards wherever the hell I am right now. Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Nietzsche. So I kind of went through a bit of a spiritual crisis sometime when I was in my late 20s, of just seeing that reality was not the nice place that you would want it to be, and that all the answers that I had sought elsewhere did not really give me what I was looking for. And so I turned to philosophy, and instantly I gravitated towards the philosophy that that really tried to like look into the dark and peer into reality and look it square in the face for what it is, and not trying to explain it away as, like there's a rational order over on top of which is laid chaos. Really, it seemed to me that the opposite was the case, and Nietzsche was giving me exactly what I needed in that direction. And that really sent me down a whole lot of other rabbit holes that are familiar to us, that in a very roundabout way led me to a book called The Ancient City, which I've talked about at length on this podcast. Basically what it is, for anybody that's still not familiar with it, is it's a book that explains how Greece and Rome fell on the basis of its religious evolution, or devolution really, away from the ancestor cult. And that put the ancestor cult in front of me. I'd never heard of it before, but as soon as I read about the ancestor cult, I just instantly, it was like a kind of dark matter that I had always known was there. And that as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, okay, this is like a skeleton key that unlocks absolutely everything right wing. So, yeah, I've talked enough about that, so I won't go into more about that. But I would say very, very quickly here, because we're already an hour in almost, that would not be my syllabus for a young man today. That's just what happened for me. I would give them, number one, I would give them Lord of the Rings for the reasons I've just explained. Number two, I would give them the Odyssey, because, well, here's the thing. You have to give young men what they're going to like. You can't give them what they need. You have to give them what they're going to accept, and what they're going to find cool, and what they're going to find awesome, and like kick ass, and like, beautiful. It's going to be enthralling to them. I love the Havamal. I think it's absolutely, like, it's just a perfect gem of a book, of a poem. But I don't think that a young man who is not already sort of like into the Germanic side of things is really going, like, he'll get a lot out of it, but I think he'll get more out of something like the Odyssey, because it's a story. It's a magnificent story. It gives you all of the things that you need. It tells you so many things you need to know. It's about a man who has been exiled from his home through circumstances not of his making, and he's desperately trying to get back. It's like the opposite of an adventure story. It's thought of as an adventure story, but it's really about homecoming and desiring to get back to your native land. And it's about going to hell and back, literally, to get there. And that when he does get there, he finds a bunch of people who have basically taken over his house. And it's about how he basically like destroys them. It's such and it's told in a way that's just so enthralling. I just think like that is an amazing story for a young man. The next one I would give him is, I would give him the biography of Genghis Khan, because here is a man who rose from absolutely nothing to becoming master of like half of the world in one lifetime. He's an immensely impressive person. Young men absolutely love this kind of stuff. It's a story that's well known. It's the biggest and most impressive rags to riches story of all time, basically. So I would give him that. I would also give him a book that I have reviewed on my Substack called Shadows on the Koyukuk, which is about it's by a guy by the name of Sidney Huntington, and he is, or was, I think he's still alive. He is a native Athabascan Alaskan who grew up in unbelievably hard times in the early 20th century where he it's just like the life that this man went through is he puts every man I've ever heard of to shame, every man that I've ever known to shame in terms of being hard and just like a survivor, basically.
All right, is this 4? Is it 3 or 4?
This is number 4.
Okay.
Yeah. So this book is really cool in a similar way as Genghis Khan, but it's somebody who's lived basically in our time. And the last one I would give them, this is going to be very controversial, I think. I would give them something like Blood Meridian. Because, you know, Blood Meridian is this book that's like incredibly violent and amoral, and it doesn't teach any lessons at all. But what it is it's a bunch of dudes like walking around and kicking ass, and in ways that are just like unbelievably violent. I think young men love that kind of stuff. I think that you have to give them something that they want and something that they need. But it is extremely amoral. So if you don't like that, I would say in its place, maybe something like Moby Dick, which is another one that I absolutely adore. Anyway, Lord of the Rings, Odyssey, Genghis Khan, Shadows on the Koyukuk, and Blood Meridian.
Blood Meridian is great if you just focus on the parts where they're walking around and show that to the kids. Like, look, it's just nature.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no plot to it. It's just it's amazing. So yes. Anyway, sorry for the roundabout answer there.
Look at Mike over here. He's like, oh, what are the 5 books you should give to a young man? He's like, you know, here, let me monologue about my 5 favorite books, but not them. Now let me monologue about these other 5 books. All right, Brendan, real quick, 5 books.
Oh, 5. Shit, I forgot there's a number. I was just going to say, I definitely encourage them to read the classics, like the you mentioned the Odyssey. Absolutely, the Odyssey is what I would say that for young men for sure that would inspire them. But so Homer, Plato, and I remember in particular Plutarch. Plutarch's Lives really like changed my life when I read.
Oh, that's a good one. That's
especially
really
the account of Alcibiades. I remember that. It actually changed me when I read about this guy. And all those Tacitus, Thucydides. I know it's not for young people, but if they read all those things, they get the classical worldview, the concepts of natural values and natural law are just imbued in those things. And I think it's very important that they read all those. I would also say Beowulf and stuff like that. And Tolkien, of course, but you were just saying about Tolkien being inspired by Beowulf. Also, I think he borrowed extremely heavily from Wagner and the Ring Cycle of Wagner. When I first picked up on that, when I read the story of Wagner's Ring Cycle, it doesn't really take away from Tolkien, but I just thought, well, he really borrowed a lot from, like, Wagner really leapt on into that one, into what we might consider the D&D world or whatever.
Hey, sorry, Oris, if I could just interrupt for a second. I got to head out right now, guys. I didn't want to just leave you hanging there. I'm just going to say I have to head out now, unfortunately. I had a hard exit at an hour. So
thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
You showed up.
Thank you so much. I love the show. I love everyone that's been on this as well. I wish I could stay longer, but hopefully I can be back with you guys sometime soon. Thanks again.
All the best.
Blessings, Bob.
Bye-bye.
Hell yeah.
And what else was I had another one. Shit, what was it? Well, I don't remember. I did want to say I don't think I would show him Blood Meridian, although I admire that book and I love it. Not to a kid, just because I think it's really imbued with nihilist values.
I was kind of thinking, like, you know, this is for a young man, like a teenager or something like that. The question wasn't too clear on the age. I also don't agree with how it. Yeah, I just also don't agree with how it, politically speaking, let's say, how it portrays the young cowboys, the Europeans, as being equally as basically equally as savage as the savages. I kind of don't think they would have been like quite like that. But yeah, it's a great book. It is a great book. And that's it. I'm done.
Okay.
Conan is good. I like Dave's suggestion of Conan. I should have put that on my list.
Oh, for sure.
Okay. Dave, do you have another question for us? We'll just go back and forth between you and I, the questions that we have.
Yeah, give me 1 second. Let me pull them up. I accidentally closed them. Okay, so we got a long one. Okay, let's do this one here. Says, "Dear fathers of culture, my husband is subscribed and we listen to you guys every week on Laundry Day. I'm sorry if this is too long. Your Caitlin Clark episode was very refreshing. I started playing basketball and volleyball as a little girl and all throughout school. I led the state in assists and steals. Very cool. Until I was recruited to play Division II college ball. I received full scholarship and graduated with a bachelor's in business administration. I married my husband, and now I run the books for his business from home as I raise our 4 children. Very based.
Culture mom.
Culture mom. Sports taught me the importance of fitness, teamwork, and drive. So when I hear the negativity around sports ball, she has it in quotes, it makes me cringe. There's more to sports than just NFL commercials. Why are sports, and more specifically women's sports, so maligned? Bless you guys. E. Thank you, E. I'll pass this over to let Mike.
Yes. So this is kind of a bugbear for me. I agree that I think the maligning of sports is dumb. And well, I don't know. I won't speculate on where it comes from because I don't think it comes from a very flattering place. I think sports are very important. I think they teach young people important lessons that they need to have. They teach you how to, well, first of all, they teach you dedication. And if you can, if there's nothing else that you teach your children apart from moral lessons, in terms of like, you know, how to do something or how to be anything or how to be competent, the best thing that you can teach them is how to be resilient and persistent and not give up. That is just so important. And putting them into sports, even if it's not a team sport, if it's gymnastics or something like that, is immensely important for developing that character trait. And it's like one of the character traits that like underlies every other character trait. If you can be the kind of person who just never gives up, then you're gonna be able to do something in this life. Sports teaches you that. If you play team sports, it also teaches you how to get along with people. It teaches you how to win gracefully. It teaches you how to lose gracefully. It teaches you how to be part of a team, and you know, there's no I in team and all of that stuff. Sports has so many lessons to teach, and in terms of being, folkish for a second here, it teaches you a kind of tribalism. And now this is where sports ball, quote unquote, as a meme. It says that sports is like a sort of funnel that like drains off tribal energy. I don't think that's really the case. I mean, watching sports and getting really into it and like as a kid is something incredibly wholesome and healthy. I agree with the sports ball meme thing insofar as when you get to be an adult, it's something that you should kind of put away a little bit, or substantially. You should mostly put it away. There's nothing wrong with watching the Super Bowl or having a favorite team or anything like that. But when when I was a kid, I was an absolute hockey nut, as any young Canadian man is, and like, you know, that
you're
was
Canadian too.
very...
I didn't know you're Canadian. Wow.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we had 3 Canadians in there. That's amazing.
yeah, we're the true master race. So
obviously, yeah.
But being a hockey nut, I had my favorite team, I had my favorite players, I had all the hockey cards, I was obsessed with it, and that's very important. If that's something that you still have when you're 25 or 30, that's a bit of a problem. So I do agree with like the where the meme is coming from in that sense. But there's nothing wrong with like having a little bit of sports in your life as an adult. That's okay. But if you have no sports in your life as a child, for most people, and especially for most men, that's very unhealthy. So I think all the maligning of sports in our spheres is incredibly misguided. I think it actually fosters tribalism rather than, subverting it. But it is something that, it's got so many important lessons to teach you growing up, but that as you get older, it's one of those things that you should mostly put away.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. It is important for kids. And but you have to say, with the criticism of sports ball, it mostly comes from when you, as you said, as an adult, you should put it away. But when you come across an adult who's obsessed with it and almost doesn't know what anything else to talk about, you're dealing with a certain type of person, usually a very conformist kind of person.
We're experiencing this right now. We're experiencing this right now in the UK with the the England UEFA Cup. So yeah, like I say, this is what they ever talk about. It's like every 4 years when these sort of tournaments come around. Yeah, like I say, it's always the same sort of people. Very basic, very conformist, very just nothing really interesting, you know. So,
Well, there should
Yeah.
be like that person is basically the NPC, and you know what, the
Yeah.
NPC meme, that like there's a great truth to it, but also the NPC is kind of the salt of the earth. When your civilization is healthy, you want more of that guy, because he is basically a conservative force in society. You know, he kind of like lends a inertial weight to society that kind of keeps it moving in the same direction as where it's going. And when society's healthy, that's good, and there should be a place for him. But unfortunately, our society is profoundly sick, so you know he's a bit of a problem.
Yeah.
Really, he's kind of he really is more of a victim than anything else, and I think that people should actually have a little bit more sympathy for the NPC. But yes, we've got another guest that is just come into the chat here. We've got Mr. Pete Quinones. Welcome,
Uncle Pete.
Hey, Mike. Hey, how's it going, guys?
What's
glad to
happening?
have you here.
Good morning.
So real quick on the sports ball, just to wrap it up, I think they're like the guys that are just like what do they say? Poison is in the dose, right? If you're, to be like a real football fan, it sucks up entire weekends. It takes all your time, and it gets toxic. But if you just show up, if you just like check the scores once in a while, you have a favorite team, you go to a Super Bowl party, that's wholesome, dude. When I growing up in the 90s, we had like guys like Brett Favre and John Elway. We trade their cards, and like those guys were cool. Like this, I just got done watching the NBA finals. I don't watch NBA during the whole year, but I checked up on, some players that I like, the European guys that are crushing it. Right. And plus it's a cultural phenomenon. If you are red pilled so hard that you become this kind of isolated person, this creature that can't even, we got guys now that are like, oh, I do this fucking carnivore diet and I don't watch sports ball and I don't do anything except watch paint dry, and I hate fun. Swimming is Jewish and everything fun is, like everything,
No,
everything.
reading and learning is Jewish now.
Oh my God.
I've had a couple groypers tell me that. Any kind of argument is Jewish. Everything is basically Jewish now if it takes thought.
And it comes down to that you can't even function or like socialize with regular people. Oh, I can't eat the dinner here because there's too many carbs in it.
They say they're proud incels. So, mean, if this is what I said this morning, I said that in a private chat, I said, if Nick Fuentes disappeared tomorrow, most of the incels would probably just become trans, and it would be no different because being an incel and being trans is anti-civilizational anyway. So what the hell do they think they're accomplishing?
You have a great point. I have noticed a trend where functionally every single corner of the internet where you go to is anti-natalist. Right, you got the groypers, you got feminism, you got MGTOW, you got it's like everywhere you turn, it's some kind of anti-natalism getting young men or young women or everybody to like not form families. You know what I mean?
And
Except
also
the KDADS, that's our imperative here. Like we are here to make the dad cool again. That's our MAGA basically. Like the dad. And Dave's gone on this rant before. Dave, tell us what's on your mind with that.
With what?
With the dad and the need to revive him and to make him cool and not like a sort of like Homer Simpson character anymore.
Well, yeah, that was Hollyweird. What the first figure that they really wanted to take down was the father. First, they made him a fat idiot. Then they made him effete and weak, and his wife bosses him around. And then they have a neighbor who's like the smart gay guy who always, the father has been under attack for years and years. Whether it's Boy Scouts, whether it's teachers chasing men out of elementary schools, men can't teach anymore because, oh man, they might be perverts. Well, the only perverts you guys are letting in are the who's that you guys are putting in. You know what I mean? It's all across the board. The father is completely under attack, and until we restore the power and the honor and the respect and the love for the father, for the patriarch, society will not heal. We could go at every other topic everybody's talking about, but until dad is back and until dad is cool and dad is respected and loved and dad actually has power in his home, meaning his wife can't call and get the state to come remove him at her whim, then society will not heal. We need to bring back the dad. And here's the deal. So many, whether we're talking Andrew Tate, whether we're talking, Nick Fuentes, whether we're talking all of these e-celebs across all the different boards are taking young men and telling them you be young forever. Being dad is gay. Being dad is boring. It's cringe. All this stuff. Getting old is cringe. You can just be young forever or pursue your thing. Become a hero. Become this and why settle for this and that? And here's what it is. The overwhelming majority of men listening right now in the world, the greatest achievement, the most fulfilling thing that you can have in your life is not becoming a fucking hero. Only a couple guys can do that. It's not, it's becoming a father. The moment that you hold your child for the first time and you see your father's eyes in his eyes is the most special spiritual thing that can happen to you, and it will change you forever, and you will see. You will see.
Well, yes, and as well as that spiritual and the loving aspect, there is, as being men and being practical, it is like the expansion of your own little personal kingdom and your stake in the future. And like this kind of, if you look at it purely Conan type terms, there's that, like for all these antinatalists, these incels and that, who I really don't understand how they make this little armor of their whining and their self-pity. I really don't understand those guys at all. How it's so feminine, like to do that and to whine and complain. People complain about the expense and everything, but like people should know when you start having kids, you simply find a way. Whatever you got to do, you can say, "Oh, it costs this much a year for diapers and all this." Like, just forget all that shit. That's what I would say.
Go ahead, Pete.
The feminine aspect of everything is easy if you, not to take it too far down a Jungian rabbit hole, if you realize that with the institution of World War II and the Nuremberg regime, we've entered into this age of like the devouring mother, where everything becomes feminine. Everyone is to be protected. Everyone is to be put in a cocoon. If you step out of line, you're supposed to apologize to your mother. Anything is seen as a slight against her. And what we've seen, I think what we're starting to see with certain figures is the vengeful son rising up to fight against the devouring mother. And it was just a matter of time. And to where people are going to, I've seen this with like some of the things that MMA fighter Sean Strickland has said. And in politics, it's hard to see in politics, but I think no one more than JD Vance has it. JD Vance, who realizes, he understands who the people were who targeted his people with opiates and flooding this poison in to kill his people. I think what you're seeing is you're going to see an eventual transition out of the devouring mother into the vengeful son. And the only problem with the vengeful son is like it feels really good, and you have to be careful not to go too far, because if the vengeful son goes too far, then things get out of control in the other direction.
Are you saying the incels are the vengeful son, or we're the vengeful son?
No, the incels are not the vengeful son.
Okay.
The incels are still in the devouring mother.
It's a good point about the Nuremberg trials related to the devouring mother, because basically what the upshot of that is that there is to devolve, or not to devolve, but to raise sovereignty to the point where the nation state no longer exists, right? You've talked about this on your podcast with Thomas 777 quite a lot. Basically, what's happened here is that there is always a higher court of appeal, and that higher court of appeal is like, essentially the UN or the quote unquote international, the international community, so to speak. And basically what this has done is it's brought us to a point where formalism, like it's basically formalism run amok kind of thing, where there is no actual sovereign. Basically, all there is a series. It's like constitutionalism. Like the idea is that the rules themselves are sovereign, and there's no actual person who makes the decision. Decision is basically deferred forever. And what this is fundamentally a kind of deism. It's like the clockwork god that like just creates the universe and then leaves or whatever. Like there's no God, there's no sovereign, there's no decision, there's no anything. And that is a very fundamentally feminine thing, right? Like we were talking at the very beginning of this episode, Pete, about the differences between men and women. And one of the things that we came up with that I think is very true is that, men are decisionists that sort of see the full picture and have the vision to be able to like make those high level decisions, whereas women are excellent. They are the best administrators and people who run their household. Like, going back to this question here, that they're so good at that sort of thing, but they kind of need to inherit a set of rules. And when the rules themselves basically do not proceed from any God, or they don't proceed from any sovereign, that's where you run into problems. And that is essentially what the Nuremberg trials have done. So I actually think that analysis, that Jungian analysis, makes a lot of sense.
So before I actually have a question that goes perfectly with this, but before we do that, I wanted to go back to Dr. Dutton about did you hear the question that the fella had about the ADHD? And would you like to address that?
No, what was the question?
He says, he's talking to me. He says, Dave, I really enjoyed your long talk about the ADHD. I've struggled with it my entire life. It was fine when I was a young man, but now that I'm a father trying to run a household, it's a problem. I find myself forgetting important things and driving my wife nuts. How can I be a functional human? Should I take the Adderall?
No, I don't think it's necessarily a good idea to take behavioral altering drugs. But presumably, it crosses over with autism, which I know more about. Inattentiveness and hyperactivity, and so my understanding is that the way to deal with inattentiveness, and this works with the personality trait conscientiousness, is to create structures and stick with them, so that consequently, when you are prone to being inattentive and forgetting, you won't actually forget anything. It will be harder for you to forget what you're doing because it will be instinctive in you that, like, let's say, to give a really prosaic example, if you eat exactly the same, if you have a dinner schedule whereby on Monday, Tuesday, every day of the week is a specific food. For example, something as prosaic as that. So always on Mondays you have curry. Always on Tuesdays you have spaghetti and meatballs. I don't know. Then you are less. That kind of structure means that there are less things to think about, and therefore you're less likely to forget other things. And I've noticed that order and structure with such people can be thrown out by exactly that sort of thing. They can become forgetful when exactly that sort of thing is interfered with. So that would be one way of doing things, would be to consciously bring in an almost autistic level of structure, such that there's kind of less to remember, if you like.
Yeah.
And it goes with, I think, that was, I think, while I was burning myself cooking my steak, I asked you a question. You made some remark to that effect, actually, didn't you? You said something like that if your routines are interfered with, then did you say something to that effect?
What I suggested was for folks that really do have, especially going to adult life, to avoid obligations that you can't structure, that don't have inherent structure to them. For example, a job with a changing schedule. I have been fired from dozens of jobs with changing schedules. And what I have found in my adult life is if I'm at the interview, I have to say, I need the same schedule every single week. If you can't do this, then I can't accept the job. And what happens, unfortunately, a lot of times is people don't take ADHD seriously. They don't care about it. They don't understand that you have this, and you can't make them understand. You can only just like not deal with them. So a lot of times what has happened is they say, yeah, we could do that. We could accommodate that. And then, you're like 6 months, 8 months, a year into the job, and like, hey, we need you to start doing this. We need you to start doing that. We need you to start doing this or this, that. And then you end up getting fired because you screw it up.
Yeah, exactly. And it's I mean, it's a serious problem that almost with the feminization of the workplace in some ways, this idea that they put in most job adverts, you have to be a good multitasker. No, that should be illegal. That's basically sex discrimination. You should not have to be a good multitasker. You should have a task and do it extremely well. And what's that? Yeah, strange noise. And no one should interfere with that. And if they do, as I said, the crossover with autism seems to be substantial. It can bring about anxiety and depression in these people if their routines are interfered with, because they feel a complete lack of control. And they feel that absolutely nothing makes sense, and then they become stressed, and then you get more carelessness, more poor organization, more forgetfulness, more inability to prioritize, more edginess, whatever. So I think it's even things like nervous tics. So I think it's very that structuring his life in such a way that it is highly, in a lot of ways, highly predictable, is very important. One of the awful things in Finland, it's incredible, this is that school does not start and finish at the same time every day. I would have found that unbearable as a child, and I find it unbearable as a parent. So from one day to the next, I don't know what time my children start school or what time they finish school.
How do you organize your pickup times and all that? Then you have to be totally free.
Unfortunately, they live. The school is walking distance, so that's not that bad. But it's still absolutely ridiculous that you can't know from one week to the next. So why can't school just start at 9 o'clock and end at 4 o'clock or something like that? But no, that would be too helpful for the Finnish education system. No. Instead, the school on this day starts at 10, and on this day starts at 8, and on this day starts at 11, and it's insane. And there's just no reason for it. And then other things, of course, go together with ADHD. Things like dyslexia. There's all kinds of dyspraxia. All kinds of comorbid conditions that benefit from sort of structure and order. So it crosses over so strongly with autism. I wonder if they're almost like how separate it is. But what he should focus on, I don't know what this guy does for a living, but one of the brilliant things about ADHD is although they're all over the place, they can have periods of intense concentration when they're interested in something.
Yeah.
And I was reading about James Watson, the guy that discovered the structure of DNA. And if you read his memoirs, it seems to be obvious he has ADHD, and he gets bored easily, and he can't be buggered with things, and he likes to move on from one topic to another topic until he actually finds something which fascinates him, i.e., finding out the structure of DNA. And then that's it. Then he's just utterly focused on that.
You have what are like obsession holes. For example, if I get hot on a story idea, I can write 10,000 words in one sitting. I can really, it's almost like a superpower that if I could put a project on my back and do the entire thing myself in one day. But the thing is, if it goes on for too long, if I run out of juice on it, then it gets abandoned. I have probably 20 to 30 different half-finished stories, poems, projects. That's how it works. You need to figure out, firstly, I would tell this guy, you need to figure out a way that you can use this superpower. This is what I've done. I was like, I'm really good at doing this. So short-term tasks, things that are not long-term, that have incremental things, are just not your bag. Large bursts of energy that go into one thing that you can get done really quickly. Number 2, this is a motto that I've developed, right? For ADHD folks, remember to remember. I know that sounds weird, but remember to remember. One of the biggest problems with ADHD is that it is a constant quest for dopamine hits. You have less dopamine in your brain, and you're constantly on the search to get that dopamine hit. And if you don't fulfill that with positive things, it'll turn into impulsive eating. It will turn into even more negative things, like you could do drugs. It could be promiscuous behavior. Could be any of the above, right? But remember to remember, if you have not gotten this stuff done and you're walking around in the kitchen and you're getting ready to stuff your fucking face, or you're going to go get in your car and go do something and spend a bunch of money impulsively, or if you're shopping on Amazon, or whatever your impulse is, whatever your vice of choice is, remember to remember how the consequences of that. Remember to remember. Remember to remember what happens when you don't keep up with your gym schedule. Remember to remember what happens when you don't put into your phone your alarm. Remember to remember. Because if you don't, these things will pile up over time. And as Dr. Dutton just said, it will become a hole that you struggle even more to get yourself climb out of it, and nobody is going to help you. So you're going to be on your own. You're on an island with this thing. So remember to remember.
Yes, that's a good point. Yeah, you've got to tell yourself to remember something. I constantly, I find myself constantly losing things. I don't know if it's an ADHD trait. Constantly car keys. I lost my car keys for 6 months. I had to use my wife's. Little things like that. Forgetfulness. But there's impatience, all these things, But there are definite positive sides to it this is becoming increasingly clear.
Yeah, things. Here's a couple little techniques I do. Here's a deal. People don't. If you have ADHD, you remember things in blocks of time. You don't remember. Most normal people can rewind their day before and give you like a whole film reel of what happened. You remember blocks. I got up. I remember that. I remember getting out of the shower. I remember getting out of the car at work. I remember XYZ. This is why we have time blindness. It's almost like people with schizophrenia, that blocks of time go missing. And because of this, you are going to forget things. You put your wallet down, that wallet is gone. It doesn't exist anymore. Right. So here's what I do to develop techniques to not lose my keys for 6 months. As Dr. I do that constantly. They just vanish. My wallet, things that you need to survive. For example, one thing that I do every time I stand up, I pat my back right pocket. I put my wallet in the same pocket every single time. Every time I stand up, I pat my back pocket to make sure I still have my wallet. My keys, I keep it in my front left pocket. Every time I stand up, I pat my back right pocket and then my front left pocket. I don't even think about it. It's muscle memory. But that ensures that I still have those items, because if I don't have them, I will put them down and lose them and forget they even exist until I need them again.
Well, that's better than taking drugs. You invent patterns for yourself that you can just repeat. That sounds like a good way to cope with it.
Here's the thing with the drugs, though. It's like there are things that you're going to have to do in modernity that are so tedious and are going to be such a struggle, but you have to do it. Your taxes, job applications, things that normal people could just knock out and it's not fun for them. For you, it's like climbing a mountain. This is how I describe it. When you're trying to focus on these things, it feels like every time you lock your focus in, somebody blows an air horn in your face. It's a struggle. I have to get up and walk around, do jumping jacks. Sometimes I get frustrated. I have to yell. I get mad. If you're going to have to do these things in life, and sometimes you might have to pop Adrenaline, pop an Adderall or whatever. But I would suggest if you are going to use these drugs, do not do the extended release. Do not make them part of who you are. Get the ones that you take half of one, it's over at the end of the day or whatever. If you get into the cycle of these extended release, you're going to be up all night. You're not going to be eating right. It's going to fuck your life up. So if you are going to do it that way.
You're making me wonder if I don't have a touch of this thing too, but so someone like
I had the same thing when I listened to that stream that he did at first. I'm like, maybe I have it too.
Yeah, man.
It reminds me. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So no, I was just going to say I've been thinking the same. Like, I don't want to do the whole self-diagnosing thing or something. But I've been wondering if I maybe have it a little bit, because I think it's one thing with me is I can totally work extremely focused on things like coding or working on my game or whatever. I find it extremely hard to focus on things that don't interest me, and exactly like bureaucracy, tax stuff, or all these banal everyday things you have to do. It's very hard for me. I mean, I have just kind of learned to do it over time, because you have to as an adult person. But yeah, I don't know. I guess it's also it exists on a spectrum or something. I don't know.
I guess I would say if that's how you are, if you can't concentrate on things that you don't like or that are tedious, do not become a publisher. There's so much. There's so much involved. Even if you like the thing that you're working on, there's just so much tedium involved in getting.
Programming is also extremely tedious, but it's I have a thing I can focus on. I'm doing this because I want this outcome, so I can do it. But yeah, I don't know. I've always admired these people who are just give them any task, whatever it is. I don't know, some chore or some highbrow whatever task, and they can just do it because they have this. I don't know. I always thought it's a matter of work ethic, but maybe it's literally about how your brain is wired. I don't know.
For me, it's like it's a matter of like I take it personally. I have this weird thing where I guess I'm kind of like, you know, Captain Ahab in some ways, where like the brute fact of nature sticks in my craw, that it's like, you know, if I stub my toe on a rock, I hate the rock and then I throw it across the street or something. I have the same thing about when I'm working on a project and it's not going well and I can't finish it, or I can't like break through some sort of block. I take it personally and I get angry about it, and the anger actually fuels me, and it makes me finish it, so it actually works in my favor in some ways.
Well, I'll tell you guys. Well, firstly, I have a theory that like political leanings are a biological, psychological thing. But Mike, Dr. Dutton, and Brendan, I would, if I had to bet money, I would say that you guys have ADHD. Dr. Dutton, the way that you talk, your brain moves faster than your mouth. That's ADHD. You know what I mean? If you guys like have extreme,
I think I've never been diagnosed with anything like that, but I think I can see that I have some traits of it. Yeah. And some traits of autism. But certainly, yeah, some traits of ADHD. I think I forgetfulness. I have very good memory for long-term stuff, but and for details, but forgetfulness and is certainly true. And the inability to deal with tedium as well. I mean, it was an absolute killer some years ago when I was working for a publisher, and you can get these fascinating, really interesting books. And they're reduced to you hating them because of these appalling programs that have to be used to make them publishable, and it's so tedious. It's mind-numbingly tedious work.
It reminds me of working in the corporate world, because that is the worst for someone like us, I think, because what I chalked it up to was the slow sort of feminization of the workforce over the decades I was in the corporate world, let's say. But really, what I notice is the people that excel and the people that do well were not people that do obsessively good jobs of things. Like I could do my job extremely well, focus on this and that, even though it was tedious, I could get through it, let's say. The people that really got further in that world were the people that could were the opposite of us, would do everything on time, really spell everything in their emails correctly, and were very social. And these would be the people in charge telling you what to do. In the end, they would have no real skills or ability.
I almost do things on time. I'm never late. I hate lateness. I'm not. I don't tend to late. Ironically, except for this thing today, which I did forget about, because it was not part of any kind of normal routine to go to an interview or whatever in the middle of the afternoon. They're always in the evening. And that just threw me, and I forgot about it. And I was doing the crossword, and I checked my emails, and there it was, this thing, come join us. And I realized I was 10 minutes late. I was like, oh my god, that's awful. But I'm forgetful for many things, yeah. But I missed words out. That's one thing I do when I write things like books or whatever. I always miss words out. Always.
I'm the same. I always do that as well.
So yeah,
it seems very important. You miss it, yeah.
Dr. Dunn, I would like to talk more with you about this. So after the show, if we could link up and talk about some ADHD stuff. But Mr. Pete, you had something you wanted to say.
Yeah, I was going to say, I guess I'm just a simple caveman. I can read and study and do anything before 1 p.m. As soon as 1 p.m. hits, if I'm reading, I'm asleep in 15 minutes. But after 1 p.m., I'm a much better conversationalist all the way up until the time I fall asleep. Right now, it's 9 something in the morning, and I'm struggling to put a thought together. But I could pick up a book, which I actually have to go do. I'm going to say goodbye. The Imperium Press version of Reflections on Violence, because I'm going to be doing an episode later this week and referencing Sorrel. So, but yeah, it's just
very nice.
I'm good with caffeine in the morning all the way through to 1 o'clock, and I can read, I can research, I can do anything. After that, it has to be talking, or else I'm going to fall asleep. Put something in front of me, and I'm out like a light. So, and I will just say this: Adderall was brought up. I was in a relationship with someone who was taking Adderall. It used improperly, that you can be a different person.
Yeah,
you can turn into a monster. No impulse control. and bouts of anger, bouts of rage. I mean, unless it's life or death, I would stay away from anything like that. I mean, I know that's anecdotal, but it's what I've seen has, scared me in my personal life. That stuff just seems really dangerous. I'd rather be falling asleep in the middle of the afternoon and trying to read something than loading up on something like that. So.
Well, thank you for joining us, Pete. It's really awesome to have you here. And for anybody that's not familiar with Pete, he's got his Substack. What's the link to it?
PeteSubstack.com. And
Yes.
that's probably the best place to reach out to. And I just want to congratulate you guys. I remember my 100th episode, and I took it very seriously. I had a special guest on it. I was really proud of it. And on to 1,000.
Hell yeah. Thank you,
We'll
Mr.
get
Pete.
there. We will get there. Yes. Thank you for joining us, though. And I appreciate that you made the time. So yeah, we've had people in, I think, 6 time zones so far on this. So that in itself is a bit of an achievement.
I told you guys about the cabal. We're worldwide.
That's right. Speaking of ADHD and going down rabbit holes, I think we've been on this question for 25 minutes. So we should probably move along to another
Let's mow
one.
through them. Let's mow through some questions.
All right. So the next one is very simple. What is your writing schedule like? So I guess I'll go ahead with this. My writing schedule is fairly simple. Actually, a while ago, like back when I was writing my book, which is yet to come out, it's finished, it's going to be awesome. But back when I was doing that, I had a schedule where, because I don't actually work during the day all that much because I'm a dad. I'm taking care of my kids. I'm doing all kind of like this kind of stuff. I'm the guy who can work from home, so I'm the one that does all that stuff. So I only work 2 days a week, but I work in the evenings every single day, way too late, which is why I'm always overtired. But my 2 days used to be Tuesday and Thursday. On Tuesday, I would write up the Substack because I write a Substack, imperiumpress.substack.com. So I do that on Tuesday, and I try to make it very high quality stuff. So even though you might get
Roland, can you mute when you're not talking, Bub? You got like traffic.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
So yeah, on the Substack, you might only get 1,000 words out of me. Sometimes you'll get 5,000 words out of me, but it generally takes most of the day because a lot of it is spent researching and looking things up and everything. So Tuesday is my day for that. Thursday would be my day to write about the book or a chapter or as much as I can in it. And I would usually I would spend a lot of my time related to writing was not actual writing, it was doing the research. And so what I would do is I would download podcasts and like watch YouTube videos and do everything that I can other than read so that I could listen to what I need to do my research. And that way I could do it while I'm driving, or I can do it while I'm doing my weight training or whatever it is. So that was, doing that basically made me very productive. So that was a good way to structure it. But now the book's done. So now what I do is I've switched it around. I do my Thursdays and Fridays are my work days. So Thursday is Substack. Friday is like usually either working on books or it's always partially prepping for the Culture Dads episodes. But yeah, so that's my writing schedule basically.
Hell yeah.
That's interesting.
I would tell you, it depends if how serious you are about being a writer. Do you want to have books published? Do you want to have articles? Like, how serious are you as a writer? It's like anything. If you want to be a writer, it's a long way to the top. If you want to rock and roll, if you want to be a guitar player, you got to pick up your axe and you got to go through your scales every single day. You don't want to get rusty. You will get rusty. If you don't write for a long time, you try to write again, you're going to be rusty. You're going to forget your vocabulary. You're not going to have the same flow. 500 words every day. Doesn't matter what it is. I try to do something a little bit more creative. It depends what we're doing. If I have an article I got to write, I do something that's a little less creative, a little bit more nonfiction. If I'm in fiction mode, dog, I'm writing poetry. I'm writing something. 500 words every single day. Don't miss. It doesn't. I like to do it in the morning when I pop up, I wake up and my brain's fresh. I'll type on my phone. I'll do it on my computer. Don't matter. Minimum 500 words every day, or like that's it.
That's interesting because
So for me, sorry. Oh, I'll
I've just started writing my first ever book. So yeah, this is like interesting little techniques to pick up. I mean, you know, I'm doing it whilst I am also, you know, making videos and writing music. So I mean, like, what I found of it so far is like, yeah, getting the schedule is very difficult. I mean, like you, David, doing 500 words a day. I'm definitely not doing that. I mean, like, you know, I start writing and I'm like, I get, you know, instant writer's block. I write like a whole like paragraph's worth, and I think that's a whole bloody, you know, chapter's worth, and I read it back to like a few hundred words. But I mean, what I want to try and get into the habit of doing is like, when I'm at work, I'm always brainstorming this book, and I'm sort of like talking to myself about, you know, it's like sort of like writing the book in my head. Something I'm going to try and get into the habit of doing is like, you know, just like talking to my phone microphone and say like a voice message note of that, what, you know, that chapter I'm basically writing in my head, and then when I finally get the chance to sit on my computer and write it properly, write it out. So yeah, that's basically what I'm doing personally. But yeah, what you two have said is really, that's actually really been really helpful.
See, you're making me wonder if I do have the ADHD, because there's one thing I don't do is work to a schedule. I can't stand having a schedule, and anything I've done over the last 10 or 12 years is like I've worked from home for fucking 20 years or something. So anything I've done in this world of ours here, or this writing and stuff, publishing, etc., I'm basically like a working stay-at-home dad for all this time. So any time I get in between the kids is very valuable time.
Right.
That's when I write or do whatever, but it's only in these little bits, whatever time I can get, basically. And I have no schedule.
A couple of quick tips.
Just whatever I can grab.
Sorry. I just want to say a couple of things that might help here just quickly, because, you know, we got a lot of questions and everything. One thing that I used to do, like, you basically, the overall take is that it has to be, it should be structured, I think, to make this, you know, to get good at anything, the 10,000 hours thing. One thing I used to do, I used to work a sales job, and I would pick one of the people who walked in and I spoke to that day, and I would just make up a fictional account of like something that they did. I don't know who they are. I would give them a name, even if I didn't know their name, and I would just like write a little episode of like something that happened to them or whatever, just as a kind of exercise. And another thing that I did was I found that my best writing was always writing at night, and especially writing late at night. And that I would, if I edit it in the morning, if I write at night and edit in the morning, my writing was much better, because my editing is just, when you wake up, you're just kind of like not all there. But, and so these like crazy like flights of fancy that are kind of like maybe dumb and like you thought were awesome, you kind of like, it's like sober you looking at your writing. I just found that was really cool. Another thing that I do that's, it kind of helps, especially if you work a job where you can't, you know, you can't just like, you know, minimize your window and type something in a notepad. I actually have a voice to text app on my phone. So if I'm doing something like driving, or if I'm like, I just can't write, I'll just like do a little monologue, and it just helps me remember stuff, because my memory is absolutely atrocious.
Yeah, that's exactly what I want to start doing myself. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I would recommend that highly.
Yeah, the important things are the ideas, as far as I'm concerned. So I always do that. If I'm doing my daily business, an idea pops in my head, I write myself an email or record it and send it to myself, because it'll get lost. You will lose.
I mean, yeah, I mean, like, yeah, with my job, I mean, yeah, I'm a trucker, so I spend hours and hours just driving, and like like I said, I'm talking to myself, and like I'm basically, like I said, writing chapters in my head. But when it actually comes down to writing it on the, you know, on a computer, it's gone. It's very frustrating. So yeah,
get that app. Get the text to, or the voice to text app.
It's literally called that, is it?
That's really good.
Is it literally called voice to text app?
Yeah.
So let's start mowing through some of these questions. So here's a quick one here. What's up, dads? 2-part pizza question. Last day on earth. Your last pizza ever. Choose 2 toppings. And best pizza joint in your area. Mike.
All right. Well, the first question is like no contest. It is pepperoni and green olives. That's, for some reason, that is the pizza that I just hooked on to when I was a kid. We used to have this like one place that's like now closed down in my hometown, just made the absolute best pizza. but it took like 45 minutes for them to make anything. So you'd go there and you'd be hungry, and I'd go there every year on my birthday, and I'd be hungry when I got there. And by the time the pizza comes out, I'm like, I'm just like on the edge of starvation. And it was just so good. And it was always pepperoni and green olives. Something about the pepperoni's just got that, especially when it's nice and sizzled up and it's very crispy. It's just got that sort of bacony kind of ness to it. And the green olive gives it that tang. It's like the yin and yang kind of thing. That is a perfect pizza. That is a 100 out of 100 pizza there. Pepperoni and green olive.
So for me, best two toppings, if I'd like last pie ever, I would do sausage and mushroom. Sausage and mushroom be my toppings. My second place would be Hawaiian with ham and pineapple. I love the Hawaiian pie. But my first one, sausage and mushrooms. Best pizza joint in my area. I'm not going to tell you because you're trying to dox me. Nice try, FBI. But I'll tell you this, and it's not my immediate area, but I'm about 2 hours away from Philadelphia. If you find yourself in Philadelphia, there's a spot called Angelo's Pizza. Go to Angelo's and get the margarita pie. Best pizza. I've had pizza in Baltimore. I've had pizza in New York City. I've had pizza all over the East Coast. It is the best pie on the East Coast. Angelo's in Philly. Go ahead, Brendo.
Well, David, you're not going to believe this, but mine is exactly the same as yours.
Hell yeah.
And I was actually almost embarrassed. I was feeling embarrassed to say the ham and pineapple. I was like, oh, he's a guinea. He's going to be on my case about this.
Nah.
But, yeah.
You guys are contrarians. Come on. That's a contrarian take.
You want to try reindeer meat, mushroom, and blue cheese?
Oh, that sounds great.
Wow.
That's what I go for. Up my way.
Oh,
Reindeer meat,
venison. Yeah,
mushroom, not venison. Reindeer.
Well,
It'll be reindeer.
Does it not taste the same? Does it not taste?
No,
like
it doesn't
venison?
taste. It tastes a little bit different.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same, but it's a little bit. But yeah, that's. I don't eat pizzas very much, but that's the one I go for if I do.
Is pizza big in Finland?
Yeah, it is.
It's big everywhere.
It's but Finland is so behind other countries. So McDonald's didn't get here till maybe the 90s, and Burger King only got here about 10 years ago. And so it was pizzerias. There were these loads and loads. There's loads and loads and loads of pizzerias. Pizzeria stroke kebab shops. There's loads of them.
Dr. Dutton, I did want to ask you something, if you don't mind. Something you said earlier, and I'm just very curious about it. Since you, and I haven't really thought about it, you said the Finnish are not technically biologically Indo-European descendant, and your time there and your family and everything else, is there traits they have that you notice are different, that you would say are genetic difference of any kind?
Well, I've written a whole book on this called The Silent Raven. Yeah, they're markedly different from other European peoples genetically. There's a huge, substantial difference between them and the Swedes, and then also there's a substantial difference as big again between the Western Finns and the Eastern Finns. You get a certain kind of physical look that would be an extreme outlier that you would just never see in England, but which you see here. Sort of a nose that is straight up towards you, so like a snout, where it's the nose is straight on,
right?
Big nostrils, these sort of parallelogram shaped eyes, so they look a little bit like a frog, or perhaps a Placerius, the pre-dinosaur. What was that period called? Triassic period.
This is excellent.
So that's definitely genetic.
Fins back the fuck up.
They're extremely socially conformist. In fact, the IQ range, the range is the narrowest in Europe. Although it's the highest IQ in Europe, it's the narrowest. And so, in that sense, it parallels Japan. Very narrow range, very high intelligence, and very low levels of psychopathology and things like that. So you just don't get many Finnish geniuses. They have an IQ of 103, but their genius level is on a par with like Romania in terms of after geniuses. And almost all their geniuses are Swedish-speaking Finns, which is a minority here of 5%. And the Swedish-speaking Finns they look like English people or Swedes or whatever. They behave like them. They are like them, and you notice their Finns are very quiet. They're very introverted.
very, very conflict averse. They're very, very ethnocentric. I think even like that they will trust people because they're Finns. Social trust levels are sky high, and I think a lot of these things are genetic. In fact, there was a study. What is that? What is noise?
I'd say it's rolling, is it? Oh,
There was a study which was led by my colleague Kenya Kura, where we tried to understand the genetics of race differences in Nobel Prizes, and we found there are a number of polymorphisms, genes that express in different ways, which are related to creativity and curiosity. And those were the highest in Europeans, the lowest in East Asians, and intermediate in Finns.
Intermediate.
Between Europeans and East Asians in terms of the prevalence of these polymorphisms.
Right.
Weird.
Well, isn't that the meme of like what Finns actually are? Is somewhere between like ancestrally somewhere in the deep past, 10,000 years ago, somewhere between a Western European.
No, much more recently than that. So if the Finns came to what is now Finland a couple of thousand years ago, and in their movements through, they've been in contact with East Asians, and so they're about 5 to 10% on average East Asian Finns.
Right.
And this is on the Y chromosome, so it's some sort of dominance of Finno-Uralic peoples with and also their relationship to alcohol is very non-European. It's that they get drunk very easily, they become alcoholics very easily. They adopted proper farming quite late, really as recently as about 800 years ago. Before that, the vast majority of it was slash and burn farming, and that means that the water is quite clean, and so there's no need for alcohol. So alcohol, the genes to cope with alcohol have had much less time to spread throughout the population. So they than compared to England or whatever. So they drink heavily. They become alcoholic very easily. There's big problem. We're midsummer now. Now, fortunately, midsummer, which was yesterday night, was quite rainy and a bit cold. But other years, they throughout the day, people will die. People will drown because they're drunk and they're swimming, or they'll be hit by cars or whatever. It's just a huge drinking death fest. And they report in the newspapers. The headline will be like, Ukko takes a great toll. Ukko being this Finnish god of storms, and there maybe 12 people will die in that one day, or maybe more. If it's hot, the more of them will die. So there's this horrible relationship, there was Greenlandic-like relationship with alcohol. I once wrote this book. It was my second ever book. It was called The Finnuit, Finnish Culture and the Religion of Uniqueness, which I compared them to Greenlandic people and said that they're basically like an Arctic people rather than a European people.
That's fascinating. Well, we got to keep moving here, but that's really fascinating. Roland, best 2-topping pizza and best place in your area.
I think it has to be definitely something spicy. I really love spicy food. I guess like salami and pepperoni. And the best joint is well, I'm living in the Upper Austrian countryside by now, so there's actually nothing here. But the closest would be in the city where I used to live in Linz. It's called Pizzeria Rufa. Probably nobody knows that. But it's a really good pizzeria ran by actual Italians, so
Oh yeah. No matter.
I spent a lot of my late teens and early 20s working in pizza joints, so I've had a lot of combinations. So this may sound a bit random, but I'll say chicken and green peppers.
Nah, that's good.
As for best pizza joint, I don't know. In my small town, there's you got all the commercial ones. You get your Pizza Huts, your Papa John's, your Domino's. So it's just basically whichever one of those you prefer. Really, there's no like Pacific independent pizzeria or anything like that. So yeah, I mean personally, Domino's. So
all right. So who? Oh, Dave, you asked a question last. Okay, so we've got one specifically for me here. Would Mike elaborate on his pagan faith a little bit more? I sense he is not following Germanic paganism or Odinism, but rather some form of ancestral worship or veneration. With genuine respect, I am interested, but I understand that it may be too personal to share in this forum. If there is anything Mike could say on this topic in more detail, I would be very grateful. So, yes, I am a Germanic pagan. I started out as a Indo-European reconstructionist, which is kind of like the biggest handicap you could give yourself if you wanted to be a pagan, because it is reconstructing a praxis and a mythology that has absolutely no sources, that requires comparative mythology and comparative law and drawing and comparative linguistics and all of these esoteric subjects that are really sort of like PhD level if you want to actually make this happen. And over time, I have realized that that is something that is impossible, and it's also something that is maybe not really desirable either, for like theological reasons that I've written a little bit about in my Substack in terms of, it's like you have to give like credence to your recent ancestors. If you just want to reconstruct the oldest thing, that is in some ways kind of oikophobia, which is like the $5 word to describe basically the worst thing ever. It's having an aversion to what's close, right? So over time, I have like very much more moved towards becoming a Germanic pagan, and in terms of my actual praxis, I mean, I won't say too much about it because I do practice the ancestor cult. I've reconstructed what I can, and it's a learning process, and it will go on probably for the rest of my life. But it's like, so I do pray to the Germanic gods. I do worship them. And the ancestor cult that I have cultivated and reconstructed is very much informed, first of all, by, of course, Germanic praxis, but also by Roman praxis and Greek praxis, because we have much more in the way of records there. And to be honest, it is not really that different between those branches. So it's actually something it's completely valid, and you can use to reconstruct the actual praxis of like the ritual and even the prayers. Like we can even reconstruct little bits and pieces of prayers that probably go back to the Indo-Europeans themselves. We can reconstruct some like very small snippets of ritual that go back that far. And the reason why I gave up on it is because we can't do the whole thing. We can't reconstruct the whole thing. So it would be kind of inauthentic to try. Or at least to say that that's what you're doing. But definitely, so I do practice the ancestor cult, and I do it every single day. It's a day in, day out. It's quite a complex ritual. It takes at least 5 minutes to set up, and then more to actually perform. But every day, rain or shine, sick or healthy. The only time I didn't do it was like one day or maybe 2 days when I had COVID, because I just could not get off the couch. But and anything short of that, I do it every single day. And the Germanic gods are part of that too. So I am a Germanic heathen, but like, the intuition that this person had in terms of like, I sense that he's doing more ancestral veneration. It is very much that too. I would say that my heathen praxis is more geared towards ancestral veneration than most, because it's my view in terms of Germanic reconstruction that is actually the core of all of it. That's the core of Germanic praxis. I think that our Germanic forefathers were very much like more concerned with their household gods, the gods of the land, the gods of the house, the gods of the pantry, the gods of all of these things. What they were more concerned with that in their day-to-day life than they were with the high gods. It's not that they neglected, Thor and Frey or Odin or anything like that. It's just that they didn't really enter into their praxis nearly as much as even heathens today think. I think most of the praxis had to do with localized worship and things like that. So that's why I lean much more towards that myself in my own reconstruction.
Very good. Let's I got one question that we can't miss. So it says, hey guys, this is from one of the culture moms. She actually asked us a question last time. She was the one, Mike, I don't know if you remember, she had the problem where I'm sorry if I'm misremembering it, but her I don't know if it was her husband or fiance or something had a lapse in his judgment when she was about to have a baby. You remember that one?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, so she actually asked us another question. She says, "Hey guys, I don't know if you remember, but I had the question last time in regards to my husband and our predicament with his lapse in judgment. Dave's advice was actually spot on. I'm very glad. It took a lot to forgive what he did, and I'm glad that I did. Things have never been better between us, and our baby is beautiful and healthy. But now I have another problem. My mother somehow found out about what happened and is refusing to let it go. This year has been very hard on us financially. My SO, was that significant other SO? I guess.
I think so.
Yeah. So my significant other has had a really bad streak of luck with work. He's really trying, but he can't seem to catch a break. My mother has started to use this as a way to needle him. Nothing overt, but very passive aggressive and relentless. Well, about 3 weeks ago, he lost his temper on her and cursed her out at my uncle's birthday party. It was a big, ugly scene, and she has pretty much turned my whole family against him. Both of them are refusing to make peace. The problem is that we live at one of my father's properties, and she's saying she doesn't want him there. I don't know what to do. He shouldn't have snapped on her at the party, but I know what she's doing."
Right. Yeah, that is a serious predicament. So I guess what I would say, sort of off the top, for advice is, well, first of all, that this is not just about you and him. Obviously, you know this. It's also about the baby too. And what she is essentially doing is, and in her own grandmotherly way, I'm sure that there is some good intention there, trying to protect her grandson or granddaughter from, somebody that she thinks is, not a great person or whatever it is. I'm sure that there's some good intention there, but there is also some misintended consequences. That what she's essentially doing is putting a strain on the family that you don't want that to lead to the splitting of the family or whatever, because that will definitely hurt her grandchild very much so. This is something that she needs to know. This is something she needs to be told. And I would recommend that you talk to your father about that and you get him to talk to her about it, because the dynamic between a mother and a daughter is like, the mother very often does not want to take advice from the daughter and to be told things from the daughter. That is something that kind of needs to come from him, that you need to team up with dad to make this right, and that he basically needs to tell her to get her head on straight, kind of thing. Barring that, it's something that you need to do, and the good of your grandchild is at stake, and that she needs to know that, but in a way that's not confrontational. Women do not respond very well to blunt, straightforward confrontation. It's something that she needs to come to her own conclusion about. If it's you that has to talk to her, if it's her husband, that's a different story. If it's you that has to talk to her about it, it needs to be broached in a way that's sensitive and that allows her to sort of come to the conclusion on her own, sort of, in a way that allows her to retain her dignity and to feel as though she is an authority, as a mother needs to. So I guess that would be my overall advice.
So here's the deal, is that your mom is making this about her. You know what I mean? Like, she is so up in her own feelings about this. And this is just typical, like, refusing to back down, willing to chew off her own foot, or in this case, her daughter's foot, because she's up in her feelings and she's refusing to back down. And now she's using her old lady's social power in order to tear your family apart. That's what she's doing. And she's not seeing the consequence, because I'm not trying to be a jerk, but a lot of times women can't see causality on the long way out. So here's the deal. You got to go to your dad. Your dad has to rein her in. It's not her property. It's your dad's property.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I would have a quick take on this, and then I got to actually split. If you don't
go
mind.
ahead. Go ahead.
My little dad's advice. So I more or less agree, but I would say, like, in certain circumstances like this, you come up when you have confrontation and someone has the bulk of power, let's say. So maybe your dad would listen. Probably he'd rather get along with his wife. I'm assuming they're still married. And in a sense, this mother has has the power here. If they're living there on her parents' property, then I would say the best thing is to kind of, especially if this guy had some sort of transgression that pissed them off in the first place, I would deal with it by not getting confrontational, avoiding the fuss, maybe even apologizing, but not only for the sake of getting what they need in return and continuing to live on the property and everyone getting along. I would sort of suck it up and at least, avoid her in the future, but outwardly do what you can for your own sake and in purely practical sense to get everything getting along and going swimmingly. That would be my advice from what I heard of it. And I'm going to split. I'll let you guys finish off there. I really got to run. My wife is going to kill me, actually. It's been a little longer than we thought. So,
all right, brother.
Thank you for joining us.
All right, bye.
By Aegeon.
Yes, buy Aegeon. It's all my books are on Amazon. Buy Aegeon. Thanks, everybody.
Blessings. So to finish what I was saying real quick is your dad's got to rein her in, bro. She's like gonna chew off your foot to get at this guy. She purposely goaded him into a confrontation, knowing he's gonna flip out, and then cried like the victim, right? And now she's using this as a way to pressure this guy, right? He's already going through a lot. He's a new dad. He fucked up. He's got the guilt from that. He's having trouble with work. This doesn't necessarily mean he's a bad guy. He's just having a tough go. You know what I mean? It's not easy being a dad, dude, especially a new dad. And when she's putting him through this, here's the deal. You got to go to your dad and be like, yo, rein her in, because here's the deal with you. This is the traditional view. If this was in my community, here's the deal. When you married him, you left that family and you became his family. That baby is the most important thing in this equation. Whatever it takes, you have to keep your family unit together. If your dad is, I'm just going to say it. If your dad is a poon and won't stand up to his wife and tell her to knock it off, then you guys need to move. And you need to stay with your husband. And that's going to be hard. And you guys are going to have a lot more trouble. It's going to be way rockier. But you two guys staying together for the baby is the most important thing. And your mom is being a bitch.
Yeah, if dad can't rein her in and you can't make her see reason, then you need to break up with mom. I'm sorry to say, because she is going to ruin your family. She's gonna drive a wedge between you and your husband. He needs to see that you're on his side and not her side. That is such an important thing in a relationship. So, there are some stark choices that need to be made. Ideally, as we've been saying, ideally try it the one way, talk to dad. That doesn't work, talk to her, be very deft and good about it, and try not to, make her lose too much dignity. But if that doesn't work, then it's really a choice. It's really a choice between him, that is your husband, and her. And really what that is it's the choice between what's good for your child and what's not. So, yeah.
Any of you other fellows like to weigh in on that? No,
Guess not.
I mean,
don't really have much to add to that, to be honest. I can only also say that sometimes you have to make that choice and you have to decide who you're going to break up with, and it should not be at the cost of the baby. So I have little to add to that except to agree pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, you pretty much nailed it. I mean, if you got to cut away from a toxic family member, then so be it, for the benefit of the family that's growing. So yeah. Well,
I also had experience. I mean, they were of a different nature, but I also had experiences where family members decided to hate me for one reason or another, of ideological nature. And it's just I'm sorry, but you have to go. We can't have this toxic influence, and it's for the better for my family.
I think a lot.
Me and my wife.
It sounds like it's the mother. The mother has her own problems, isn't it? She should just support her daughter. That's what she should do. And it sounds like she has her own personal issues.
It sounds like she's high in neuroticism or narcissism.
Yeah. I mean, usually these people have something going on.
It sounds like a narcissistic woman. It sounds like projection. It sounds like maybe her husband had an affair, something like that.
Just all around insecurities and
exactly.
where it's and it just grows into a narcissistic personality, and it's just like it's just burden for everyone. So I mean, like, people try to keep the family together for as long as they can, but I mean, there is a line where you just got to say to certain family members, like, just fuck off, right? We're done. It's like, don't be scared to do that. I mean, if the person in question is a fully grown adult and they're who are responsible for their own actions, and they're making your life an absolute misery to the point of like you can't compromise, you can't fix them, then it's time to let them go. Simple as.
Yeah, it sounds like she has borderline personality disorder. People who have BPD are very good at this, right? They love drama. They love creating drama. They love living through other people. They love making things that aren't about them, about themselves. They're very good at manipulating social pressure, stuff like that.
Yeah, it does sound.
It's a hard thing to live with.
I've done a lot of research into BPD for a new book that I've got coming out, and it very much sounds that she's like that the mother is like that. Of course, it's highly heritable, and the daughter may well be like that herself. And the fact that the husband has had an affair is consistent with narcissistic traits. It's a genetic sort of thing, but that's what it sounds like the mother's like. Yeah.
All right, so where are we here? Next question. Hey, dads, I recently found out that I'm going to be a father to a beautiful baby girl in December.
Congratulations.
This is an appropriate question to follow up. Is there any advice you guys have for a first-time father? Yes. I would say as a first-time father, it's going to be a shock. Obviously, this is something completely new for you. You're going to be super tired. It's going to be absolutely like your life is going to be turned upside down. Probably the biggest piece of advice, the most important piece of advice that I would give is that you need to find a support network, and you need to flex that support network as hard as you can. Because the absolute worst thing is for you and your wife to try and go it alone. I know what that's like, moving to Australia and sort of not having that. It's the hardest thing. It's just the hardest thing in the world, especially if different babies are different. Like some sleep well, some sleep extremely poorly. Like they get what they need, but they don't let you get what you need. That's for damn sure. You need to have a support network. So number one, if you don't have that, if you don't live in the town that you've grown up in and have a lot of, like long-term friends, and if you don't live close to grandma and grandpa, you've got to get busy making friends. And obviously that's going to be hard, to make the kind of friends, if you don't have them in 6 months, that are going to, you're going to want to let them babysit your kid while you get some sleep. That's going to be hard to do in 6 months, but there are support networks out there. And there are, even in small towns, they have, they have these like associations of like, basically parents that get together and like vent and help each other and offer support and things like that. That is the most important thing, I would say. You need to get a support network together, because I could give all kinds of advice in terms of, what you want to do practically for what's good for the baby, what's good for your mental health, what's good for, in terms of like teaching them important things or whatever. But really the most important thing is just survival at that stage. The first 3 months are extraordinarily hard. They're extraordinarily hard. Like you have no idea what sleep deprivation is until you go through that. Especially if you have insomnia. Well, you won't have insomnia by the time that's over. That will be cured by having a baby, because it's so hard to go through the sleep deprivation and everything. And I guess this brings me to the second thing that I would say sort of in general about advice, is that you've got to go easy on your wife. She is going to be going through all of the same stuff that you're going through, but she's going to have all kinds of hormonal stuff going on that is going to make it very hard. Maybe she'll even have something like postpartum depression. Maybe at the very least, she's going to be extremely sore. Breastfeeding is no walk in the park. It's very hard on a woman's body. I don't know how old she is, but the older she is, the harder all that stuff gets. You need to be her teammate. you need to be her rock. You need to be the thing that go easy on her as best you can. I know it's hard when you're up at 3 a.m. and then the kid's crying all night and you've got no sleep. It's very easy to just snap and all of that. It needs to be at the forefront of your mind all the time, that what you're going through, she's going through even more, and it's harder on her than you. And you've got to be there for her. You've got to be her partner, in a literal sense. You guys are on the same team. Go easy on her and try to be forgiving, because she's going to snap at you. She's going to say mean shit. She's going to be like not the person that you thought she was, but it's not you. It's the baby. That's what's making all that happen. So you've got to get that support. If you don't have anybody that can babysit you, you're going to be going through like 6 years of no break ever. And that is just no person can handle that. No person can handle that. That's why, traditionally families were such that the oldest child, especially if it was a daughter, was basically like groomed to be the help, to be the person that would like help with the baby and all of that stuff. Today, we don't have that. Today, that's frowned upon as whatever. You need help. You need to cultivate that network. And if you don't have that, reach out to parents associations, and talk to. I'm sure she has a GP that she's going to. He could probably recommend some of these parent groups and everything like that. My wife and I, she did home births, so she had a midwife, and the midwife was incredibly helpful for this. Referred her to all these kinds of like associations and groups and things like that. Unfortunately, we didn't really take them up, and we totally should have. But yes, I would say that like getting help, getting a network of support is absolutely the most important thing.
Yeah, I have little to add to that, but I agree. It really cannot be overstressed how important it is to have help. We when we had our first kid, or our only kid so far, when we had our kid, we also lived alone. We moved into a city like away from my parents, and my wife's parents, like, yeah, they are from different countries. She's from Latvia actually, and we live in Austria now. And it was just the two of us, and it was very, very hard. My wife actually had some postpartum depression, and it was brutal. And we have learned our lesson, and actually moved in the countryside, very close to where my parents live. My mother-in-law, my wife's mother, is now actually living with us. She moved from Latvia to here, and we have prepared everything for our next kid to make it easier to avoid all that stuff. And it's also very helpful to live. We live in a village now. There's like very high trust. Within a short amount of time, we have been able to form bonds with the other people here, and it's just day and night difference from living in a city. So that was actually also very helpful for us.
Yeah.
Same thing I was going to say. Yeah, the support network is absolutely crucial. I'm so glad that you can hear me, yes?
Yep.
Because my avatar's got off for some reason. Absolutely crucial. I was so glad that my wife, her mother, and then she has two sisters, and then also a very good work colleague who had become a mother about a year earlier, and so she was able to give us all kinds of useful advice. So you really do need a support network. I found the best way to build that up is just to go to the park. If you do have a park near you where there's swings and whatever, go there every day, multiple times a day. And then you'll get talking to other parents, and you have this thing in common of children, and it builds up that way, that you get more and more and more of a network, and more support, and more potential allo parents and babysitters. And then also in terms of the child, exhaust it. I had a friend that was looking after his daughter, and he said she never seems to sleep. How come your daughter always sleeps? And I said, well, you've got to take her to the park every morning and exhaust her. Yeah. And then she'll sleep, won't she? You're not doing that, so of course she doesn't sleep. So that's one thing. I'll give them porridge before they go to bed once they're old enough to have that, and they seem to sleep through the night. That's my experience. You'll don't be. One thing you might feel is an overwhelming desire once the baby is born to do as much work as possible and earn as much money as possible. Don't do that. Your wife needs your help. Much better that you help her. you might feel a desire to just make as much money as you can. You'll also probably note that there'll be a process of falling in love with the child. It'll just be a burden initially, and then eventually you'll have this falling in love with it, and that takes time. That often takes till it smiles. That would be my advice.
Yeah,
just go to the bloody park and get to know people if you don't know people, because you need support.
Excellent. I would say, as Dr. Dutton just said, presence over profit. Here's the deal. When my first son was born, my in-laws, I was living near my in-laws. They're like, you got to get to work. You got to get that money. You got to get money. Because I was turning down overtime. I was turning down weekends. I was trying to spend as much time with my wife and the child as possible. And they were just
terrible advice.
They were, dude, my whole life has just been like terrible boomer advice. But you got to go to work. What are you doing? Blah, 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 blah. You got to get the money up. And I was like, no, I want to spend time with my family. And you know what? I am so glad I didn't listen to a single fucking thing they said about it. Presence over profit. Presence over profit. Being a present father is far more important than being... Who's got the noise going? All right.
Was it me again? I don't know what that is.
It's all good. Okay. It's all good. Number 2, I would say, dude, you're going to know exactly what you're doing. Get your sleep in now. As much sleep as you can before the baby's there, because you're going to, the next 6 months, you're not going to sleep for shit. 2 things. Gripe water. Gripe water is a natural, like, holistic thing for babies that have upset stomachs, burps, diarrhea, baby stomach issues. Lifesaver. Your baby is going to have these things, especially if you have a colicky baby. Dude, colicky babies are very common, and they will keep you up all night. They will be miserable. Gripe water. Also, don't panic. Just chill, and you'll be all right. Presence over profit. Gripe water. Get your sleep in now. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, I just to sort of echo that, I would say don't panic is really important advice. Everything is going to be the end of the world. You're going to think that the baby is dying, several times or whatever. Just like understand that, like, I mean, obviously you want to act if you need to act, but understand that probably everything that you're worried about, like, it's going to be okay in the end. And really the most important thing that you can do at this point is to just keep your wife sane and keep, your family not like situation not boiling over into an absolute frenzy. Like you are the one that's keeping a calm head, a cool head, and you need to be that for the family. You need to be that figurehead.
I'll tell you guys a quick story, real quick, because I know we're running out of time. But not like Mike said, not everything's the end of the world. Dude, babies are way tougher than you think they are. When they get older, they're gonna roll off the couch, they're gonna bonk their heads, they're gonna run into the fucking table. That's just how they are. You know what I mean? Obviously, don't like throw them around like a football, but be careful with them and everything like that. But they're tougher than you think they are. They're not as fragile as you think they are. And I'll give you guys a quick story here. So my first son, he might have been 1, approaching 1. He wasn't walking yet. He was just standing up. We used to keep him in a pack and play, right? Pack and play. I don't know if you guys know what that is. It's like a crib that you pop up. I don't know what you call it in other countries, but I used to keep him in a pack and play. Have you ever seen my first son? He's enormous. He likes to eat. He still likes to eat. He was like, we used to call him baby thickness, because this little kid, he would just put the food away. Whatever you give him, he was just a bottomless pit. And when I would cook, I would just like feed him as I cook. And he'd do this. He was absolutely adorable. He'd go, everything you give him, didn't matter. He would just eat it. One time I'm cooking meatballs, right? I'm making meatballs. He, to this day, loves meatballs. But I'm giving him whole meatballs, and he's just tearing them up, right? Eating these fucking meatballs. I give him a meatball one time. He drops it. And I'm like, yo, where'd the meatball go? So I pick him up out of the pack and play. I'm like looking for this meatball. I can't find it anywhere. I turn it upside down. I undo everything. I look for this meatball high and low. I can't find the meatball. I was like, he must have grabbed it and ate it or something when I wasn't looking. So I put him back in. So like 3 weeks later, I'm sleeping. He's next to the bed. I wake up and I like open my eyes and he's awake. I can hear him rustling around. And I look at him and he's got the meatball in his hand. He goes, And I'm like, no! He pops the meatball in his mouth, this 3-week-old meatball, and eats it. Right? I'm like, no. He eats his fucking 3-week-old meatball. Right? So we start panicking. We're like, he's gonna have food poisoning. Should we take him to the hospital? We started like really freaking out that he's gonna have this terrible food poisoning. He's gonna die. We're such terrible parents. How could I have let him eat this ancient fucking meatball or whatever? I don't even know where he got it. It must have, who knows where it appeared from. And of course he ate it. Guess what? He was fine. He didn't even get sick. Nothing. Perfectly
it probably
fine.
helped his immune system too. I guess what I would say, sort of like along these lines as well, is that you should take a first aid course, not only to protect your family, but to give you peace of mind, because that is going to help you set your mind at ease for a lot of this stuff. And you're gonna learn things that you don't know that you need to know in case there is an emergency. But it's gonna give you that security that if there is an emergency, you can handle it. You know what I mean?
Also, all them fucking 99% of the baby books out there, dude, you already have the software loaded. You know how to be a dad. You'll be all right. You know what I mean? So we're really running out of time, but I want to hit this one too, because this is like on the same topic. It says, humble grill fathers, I seek your wisdom. I followed the way, married with kids, a pair of twin boys and a little princess on the way. Congratulations. The fellas in my friend group haven't followed. I love these guys. We've been brothers for years, but we're all in our 30s and they don't have any interest in settling down. Moreover, they aren't helpful with my family. We went hiking recently and they just hiked ahead and were completely oblivious that I have 2 4-year-olds. I get it. They're my kids. But when I need to stop to let one of my sons pee, it would be cool if they at least stood around to keep an eye on the other so we can get back to hiking faster. Plus the drinking, leaving trash behind at my house. My wife loves them too, but has started to roll her eyes when they call and be disinterested in their presence. I can't blame her because I feel the same. What should I do?
Yes. It sounds like it's time to get some new friends.
Some
dad friends.
Say that. It sort of goes back to what
Same. Yeah.
It sort of goes back to what we were saying earlier about toxic family, and like this is the same case, but instead of family, it's friends. And yeah, like you said, Mike, it's just get rid of them, cut them off, find new friends.
Yeah. I had some friends who basically also never stopped being teenagers in that way, and then just want to keep on living this way of living. And I don't know. I don't really have much contact with them anymore. That's just how it is. What can I do? I'm not really missing them at the end of the day, to be quite honest. And I have other people I still have contact with, and that's fine. But yeah, with some, I guess you will have to part. Yeah.
You don't have to cut them off or anything like that.
No, it just happens automatically, I think.
Yeah, I mean they're doing different things than you. They're in a different phase of life than you. If they sort of come around, they have kids. You know, that friendship might fire back up again or whatever. But different stages of life require different social interactions and different social circles. So, I would say that's one that maybe you want to leave behind to some extent.
Yeah. It's dude, we all go through it. Here's the deal: is like, dude, you might love these guys, they're your boys, and there's nothing inherently wrong with them, but they're fucking man babies, dude. Like these guys, there's, I'm not talking, but here's the deal: is not all, but a lot of young, like I don't even say young men because these are grown men. Guys like childless men are just selfish, and it's not because they're maliciously selfish. They just don't know how to like be a grown man. They only understand how to be selfish. You know what I mean? It's not, like I said, they're not being mean. They're not being vindictive or whatever. They're just in the moment of being a childless guy. You know what I mean? They're just like forever bachelor. But the problem is like, I've experienced this too. Like you're dragging these kids, you're trying to get it, and they're just lackadaisical, just oblivious, fucking doing. They're like, yo, fucking.
I also just think if you don't have kids, it's just a step of in your personal development that like, yeah, if people don't have kids, they will not understand how it is to have kids. Like there is just something that you have to experience about that you. They are just lacking if you will forever remain childless, and there's just going to be like a gap of understanding that you will always have. And if people just stay in that phase, in that developmental phase, they're not bad people, as you said, yeah. But on some level, you're just living in different worlds.
Yeah, well put.
Mike, you wanna hit us with another question real quick?
All right. Next question. This will be a quick one. When is De Maistre Volume 2 coming, and what works will be in it? Okay, so we put out our first volume of the major works of Joseph De Maistre, I think in 2021. It's been a while. The next volume will be the work Du Pape, which is on the Pope. That will come next year. We've also got volume 3 in the works as well, but we're going to be doing a brand new translation of both of these. So that's going to take quite a lot of time and effort. And also we got to find somebody to introduce it, because the absolutely brilliant Dr. Bertineau, who introduced the first volume, is no longer with us, unfortunately.
Rest in peace.
So we got to, yes, RIP to him. But we got to find someone to do that. We've been looking, but we've got a lot of projects on the go. So it'll be next year, and it'll be the work on the Pope, which is amazing. It is so good. Everything by Maistre is so good. Dave, what's the next question?
So we got a basketball question right here. I wanted to hit this. So Dave, what happened to your boy Luka? Anti-white media hates him. They just hate white basketball players and are ass blasted. The two best players are white Europeans.
Of course they do.
And then he says, could the GOAT all-white team beat the GOAT all-black team? So first of all, what happened to my boy Luka? Nothing happened to Luka. His team was throwing up bricks. You know, they're going all in on this because they're looking for a reason to hate the guy. His team was throwing bricks. If you give the Celtics in the finals shot percentage also, and you share it with the Mavericks sweep. They weren't making their shots, is what happened. The only person that was Luka, who, by the way, throughout the entire series, led in field goal percentage, 3 points, assists, steals, points, and rebounds. If he won the finals, we'd be talking about the greatest finals run ever in history. But because he's, not their golden child, he's not Anthony Edwards or one of these other fucking, no disrespect to Anthony Edwards, and I don't want to disrespect anybody, but I disrespect the media. So let's talk about real quick. I'm going to, the two best basketball players are white Europeans. Yeah, that's true, because they play big boy basketball, and it's not boomer hero ball like from the 90s, and they actually play team basketball. And as far as the GOAT all white team versus the GOAT all black team, I've heard people talk about this before. Let's stack it up real quick. GOAT all black team, right? You got Steph Curry, Michael Jordan. You're going to put it in there. Let's put it Michael Jordan. Let's put at the 3, I don't know, fucking Kobe. Let's put Kobe there, LeBron James, and you got to put Shaq, right? All white team. Let's say number 1, Steve Nash. Number 2, let's put in let's put Luka there. Number 3, let's put in Larry Bird. Let's put Dirk Nowitzki at the 4, and let's put Nikola Jokic at the 5. Can that 5 beat the black team? If you're asking, can they beat them? Like, say they have a 7-game series. Yes. Here's the deal. You could put, if you have an all-star team versus an all-star team, anybody can win. And the bottom line is that the black team isn't going to be able to outscore them. They can't do anything to outscore them. It's going to come down to matchups, and we could go into a whole analysis of that, but it would go to game 7.
Yeah. And the other thing about, like, I can't get into this because I don't know basketball, but in sports in general, and in anything, the dynamic of individuals is more than the sum of their parts. A team is always, there's a dynamic of how do they play together, and that's not something that you could really say in the abstract. So
yeah,
cool. All right, so next question here.
Sorry, very, very quickly, I have to leave now. Thanks a lot for having me on, and yeah, anytime again.
Go play the Great Rebellion.
Yeah. The Great Rebellion available on Steam. We're gonna have a sale soon in about a week. Then it's gonna be 25% off. And buy our game. And yeah, thanks for having me. Bye.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Okay. All right. So this question here, it's a bit of a long one. A question for the upcoming AMA. I have been trying to recreate the Indo-European ancestor cult in my own household and to accustom myself to holding its dearest beliefs as true. However, one idea has bugged me since I first discovered the concept. If the graves of our ancestors require constant care and sustenance to keep them from becoming hungry ghosts, what has become now of our most distant and often quite recent ancestors whose graves have been forgotten and left to ruin? Which, in my accounting, would be most of them. And given the entropic and ever-changing nature of earthly history, would this not eventually be the fate of all humans, as no landed dynasty can last forever? Perhaps we could do some small ritual like carrying dirt from the old country to smooth this over, but doesn't this trivialize the need to cling so tightly to land we've colonized that this worldview is supposed to revolve around in the first place? Is the fate of all humans to wander the earth, and the cult is just a means to cling as long as we can to a vigor and a past that is eternally slipping through our fingers? I have some thoughts on this. Dave, did you want to say something though?
Well, first of all, I don't think that the clinging to soil thing is legit. Our ancestors have moved around, had migrations, and have conquered the earth and all kind of stuff. So I don't think that that's that. And also, are they all hungry ghosts? Hell yeah, dude! Look at where we're at. You're telling us that we're not getting punished right now, dog? Come on. The powers that be, our ancestors in the high holy ones, dog. I can't imagine that they're happy with us.
They're pissed. Yes. Sorry, Dave. I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's all I had.
All right. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I just want to quickly address something before I get into my main take, which is it was mentioned like a ritual about carrying dirt from the old country. This is an important ritual. It's actually the ritual that is at the founding of Rome itself. And the ritual is basically that you carry like a clod of earth from the old country to the new country, to the founding of the new colony or whatever it is. And there's other things you do, there's a whole ritual to it. It's set out in Livy. That is completely legitimate. Our ancestors were colonizers. Our ancestors were migrators. They moved around. It's important for us to be tied to the soil, and inherently the ancestor cult does that, but it does not preclude moving. But sort of my overall take here is that we need to kind of think what the death of paganism has brought about. As you know, we all know, anybody who's familiar with the ancestor cult understands that the fate of the ancestors who do not receive propitiation day in and day out is to be hungry ghosts. And this is an absolutely appalling fate. It's a hellish fate. It's as bad or worse than being in a lake of fire forever. And here's the thing, and this is the concern in this question. The near totality of people who have ever lived in this earth are currently undergoing that fate. Almost every single one of your ancestors who ever existed is enduring this fate forever. And this, to me, explains a lot about why the world is the way it is. As Dave mentioned, the gods are not happy. Now, consider this. You can fix that. Imagine, just think about this. Imagine that there are all these people, not just starving African children, but your literal flesh and blood, who are all suffering unspeakably all the way back, as far as you can trace your lineage back to the high gods. And they have been suffering this way for thousands of years. This planet is haunted as fuck. The gods are angry with us, and they have visited on us all of the atrocious ills of the modern world as a result of that. They are angry. The gods are angry. The land spirits are angry, and your ancestors are angry. No wonder things look the way they do. Now, imagine that all it would take for you to fix that, at least for your family, is to perform some rituals sincerely and authentically day after day. That's all it takes. this is not a hypothetical scenario. This is reality. This is the reality that your ancestors are living in today, right now. They are all suffering unspeakably, and it would not take very much for you to fix that. So I guess I would ask a question in relation to that, and like in response to that, what the hell are you waiting for? You know, to me, the fact of the suffering of your ancestors as a result of losing the ancestor cult is the most strong impetus launching you towards that I could imagine. So that's my answer to that question.
Based.
Very based.
So we got this is actually a question from my wife. She says she wanted to know what our favorite genre of topic was. What type of topics do we like to do the most?
Travel and history. Basically what what's the idea in the Western nomad. I love a good old conversation about, you know, where we've been and what you saw while you were there, and what you learned from it, and like, you know, how it enriched you and your adventures along the way. Because I feel like it's really real. It sort of brings out the sort of person you're talking to. You know, it says a lot about them. So that's for me personally.
So I think this question is directed at like Culture Dads episodes. If I'm not, I just sense that.
It's cool though. It's cool though.
Yeah, no, that was great. I agreed. Like travel is something, and you know, other cultures is something that we should do more actually on Culture Dads Day. We could have the nomad on to talk about this. I think. Absolutely. I don't know if we've even actually done any episodes on. Have we done them on any other cultures? I don't know.
You know what I would love to do is if we could like go to Japan or something.
Yeah. Oh.
The Culture Dads do travel vlogs. That would be
amazing.
KDADS in Japan.
Hell yeah!
I'm gonna get me some of them yaki udon noodles.
When you come into England, you got yourself a guide.
Oh, I would love it. Dude, if I went to, I got so many bros over there. We would have a fucking party. Dude, I would love to go to England. I want to try them like meat pies you guys make with the gravy and the mash. I want to try your food. I want to fucking go see all the ancient shit. I just want to vibe out in England.
Mate, like for example, last night was a killer example of why you should come to England. I mean, last night we had Tom Rousel's funeral plot. Okay, it was an absolute blast. Okay, it was phenomenal. The bloat itself was very powerful, and following that, you know, you had the fire going, had all the mead and the cider and the ale going around, people playing their folk instruments, singing from the top of our lungs, people making oaths, and like, you know, and following that, on this campsite we were at, there was a little boxing ring, and we all started having little, like, this is like 2 a.m. when we're all like really drunk, just having boxing matches in the dark.
Royal Rumble.
It's like just using like our torches on our phones as lights. And nice. Okay, you guys are hearing this first, right? You might have seen on the Wessex Nomad socials. I posted earlier a picture of me and Tom Rousel, and I said at the end that we had a fight. What were we fighting over? And like, you know, when it was like choosing like, who's next in the ring, I thought, wouldn't it be funny if it was like a sort of like a Wessex Nomad and Survivor the Drive death match. So me and Tom jumped into the ring, and we went for about a quarter of an hour. It was so funny, and we actually got some people were actually videoed it, the whole thing, and there's a chance it might go up on YouTube soon. So watch out for that.
Hell yeah,
dope. That's dope. But in terms of Culture Dads episodes, topics that I like, my favorite Culture Dads episodes are usually the ones that are a little offbeat. And now, I mean, you know, something like the Axial Age. I really like that episode because I basically got to, like, you know, sit on my soapbox and say all the shit that I believe. That was fun for me. I don't know about the audience, but the weird ones, the ones that I like the most are the one of my favorite episodes that we've done are the one on conspiracy theories, or the one on cryptids, or pizza was a really good one. I know Dave likes that. That was great. I didn't expect that was going to be so good, but it was awesome. The one on postmodernism was pretty cool. So there are a few different sort of genres that they break down as. One of them would be like the big brain episodes that are on like some sort of some topic like postmodernism or the Axial Age, which is really sort of like an academic kind of thing or whatever. that's one. Another one would be like historical episodes where we talk about something that happened, like the Cromwell episode or romanticism or whatever. Got your different art genres or aesthetic genres. You got one, we do ones on music, we do ones on movies, we do ones on well, culinary is now kind of among those. What did I say? Movies, music, and film. We do lots of those. But definitely, I would say overall, my favorite ones are the offbeat ones. They're the ones that kind of, I don't know, we always come up with like stuff that, you know, is unexpected in those. And it's, I don't know, I like it. It's sort of like venturing into unknown territory. So it's always the weird ones that are my favorites.
Oh yeah. I like I like the ones where we suggest something to the audience and somebody pops up like a week later and sends me a DM and says how much they love it. One of them was the Meta Barons, the comic book episode where we talked about Meta Barons. I probably had 10 DMs, the guys who went and picked up Meta Barons and said they loved it.
That was cool. I like that one too. Yeah.
Fantastic. The electric guitar episode. I love that one. Obviously, pizza episode was based. Dude, there was so many, but I like the ones where we can add to somebody's life. It's fun doing the history and all that stuff and the big brain stuff. I love doing all of it, but those are informative. I like the ones where we give the dad something that like adds to their life.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
We've done at least 2 now, I would say, on fatherhood, or that like touched on fatherhood, and those were really good. Those are special episodes for sure.
Monster Sanctuary, that was one that came out. We had a lot of hot takes on that came out. We're like, whoa, that was cool. Final Fantasy, the Final Fantasy episode,
yeah,
that was my favorite actually.
Really?
Actually, I don't know. I might change my mind. Like
we should do more tier lists. Those are very popular on YouTube. We should do them.
Hell yes. I love it. So yeah, that's
Nice.
favorite genre. Do you have any more questions, or do
I
we
got
them
a
all?
few more actually.
Let's mow through them.
Yeah. Okay, this one, no, that's the next. Okay, 3-part question. What was the word you guys used to describe the duty to name things that the father had? So that's the first question. It's 3 parts. So that's the first one. The second part is who does that now? And the third is how can it be us? So the answer to this question is the word used to describe the duty to name things that the father had. He is the onomastician. He is the one who names. He is the one who essentially speaks things into being by naming things. You essentially call attention to them, and in a very real way, you bring them into being. I wrote a whole Substack article on this. That's kind of buried now. It's really good. It's called Naming and Noticing. And the answer is who does that now? Well, it's different people, which is interesting because it has changed. It used to be the system, but now it's more than one person. Now it's more than one group of people who names things and has that be, what is the case. I'm trying to think of it like an example here. So take, for example, something like Donald Trump. Okay. So what's happened overall recently is that who it is that essentially determines what our categories of experience are, who is that determines the concepts that we use to understand the world, used to be the system. It used to be, the deep state. It used to be academia, all this stuff that sort of like links together. That Moldbug calls the cathedral used to be the one that was the onomastician. Now it has split apart, and the splitting of this is extremely distressing to the system. It's what we call the epistemic divorce. So for some people, Trump is the one that speaks these things into being. For example, he will tell you what is considered fake news, right? And that is extremely distressing that term was turned around against the deep state by Trump. Now Trump basically tells you that CNN is a load of shit, and that is essentially broken their spell of hegemony. And Wikipedia, he doesn't say Wikipedia, but that would be another one or whatever, right? For some people, it's Trump that essentially speaks the categories of being into being. For some people, it's Wikipedia. And you know what? For some people, it's us. For some people, it's the focus sphere. Now, we need to, the third part of the question is, how can it be us? Well, it's already starting to be us. We need to push that along. I want to be careful what I say here. We need to essentially sow division and keep that epistemic divorce happening. Make it harder for the system to maintain its hegemony. We need to devolve authority down to more local levels, which we're doing already. We are not going to, the one thing we're not going to do is we're not going to storm the Bastille. We're not going to recapture the system. We're not going to, it's not going to be our guys in government in 50 years. But we can throw sand in the gears and allow the system to basically keep going in the way, direction it's going, and make it harder for it to do its thing. And when it does fall over, we will have built the alternatives that are ready to basically take over, but at a more local level. It's going to be something very different than it has been before. So that's my quick answer to a very deep question. So, but we don't have much time, so we should keep going.
All right. The last one that I have on my end is, do we even need metaphysics?
Damn.
That's a good question. Dave, did you want to hit that?
I would say, no, you don't need metaphysics. Why do we need it?
Yeah, that's no, I substantially agree with that thesis. Metaphysics is a symptom of the axial age. It's the symptom of the growth in abstraction that's come about for all the reasons that we listed in the episode. Go back and listen to that, dads. We covered a lot of ground. I would say that metaphysics is something that we have and is here to stay. But and so I'm not anti-metaphysics in that. I think I'm not saying that we need to get rid of it, but what we definitely need to do is we need to put it down. We need to demote metaphysics. Metaphysics needs to be in the service of religion and not the other way around. I went over this I've gone over it in a couple of Substack articles, especially the last one I wrote on animism. But by the time metaphysics is telling religion what's up and telling religion what it needs to be and where it's wrong, that your religion is dead in the water. It's just a Weekend at Bernie's shuffling, shambling corpse that's ready to die. That is not a sign of health. Metaphysics basically needs to be dictated to by tradition, and in a very real way, metaphysics is the result of tradition. There is no non-traditional source that metaphysics can hook on to actually go against tradition. So I think it's not even understanding metaphysics and what it is and where it comes from. Like, it's completely misunderstanding metaphysics itself to put it at the foundation. So I don't think we can get rid of it, but I don't think we need to get rid of it. We just need to put it in its place. It needs to be subordinated. So that's my answer to that question.
Oh wait, I lied. I got one more here.
Okay.
It's real. He says takes on dolphin milk. Okay. So he's saying that. So I had a post on my Telegram. Like, it was just some funny thing I came up with my head. I was like, dolphins are mammals, meaning they have mammaries. Let's drink their milk, right? And it was like, for some reason, super controversial, and my subscriber count just like collapsed. People,
I love it when that happens.
They just hated it. I don't know. Is this a so
guy's got no sense of humor.
This fucking dolphin. Just drink some dolphin milk.
Brilliant.
Nice. Okay, so I have a 1, 2, 3, 4 more no, there's several questions. All right, next one. Have you read The World of Odysseus by Moses I. Finley? Also Finkelstein. That is actually his name. If so, what do you think of it? It's a highly regarded book in the field of Homeric scholarship, and not just by leftists, but by reliable classicists like Bernard Knox. I read it recently and thought it was quite good, despite the fact that its author is literally from the Frankfurt School. His analysis of Homeric Greece struck me as true and insightful. Consider such lines as, "It is in the nature of honor that it must be exclusive, or at least hierarchic. When everyone attains equal honor, there is no honor for anyone." Am I missing the subversion somewhere? So I am familiar with him I'm familiar with Finley in that I know who he is. I've never read him. I've heard really mixed things about him. I've heard some good things, some very good things actually, and some guys really fucking hate this guy because he's one of them and supposedly subversive. I don't know. Unfortunately, I haven't read him, so I can't really give an answer. And he's on my radar. I know who he is, but I've just got so many other things to read that I probably will never get to him. Unfortunately, I can't really give you a good answer there. Next question. A lot of this stuff is like, it's theology questions going forward. So the next one is, given that Buddhism was intertwined with Bushido for many samurai, Tsunetomo, that is Tsunetomo, the author of the Hagakure, goes so far as to say that anyone who attempts to separate Buddhism from Bushido does not understand the way. Would an axial religion like Buddhism be compatible with folkishness? So I'll say on this score, I am not an expert on Buddhism. I have read a very thick book of Buddhist scriptures. I understand the theology fairly well, but I'm not an expert. I don't know the ins and outs like I do paganism. Japanese Buddhism is very different from Theravada or Mahayana Buddhism. Japanese Buddhism is what we call Zen Buddhism, or well, Zen isn't actually. Zen comes from China. Zen is bigger than Japanese Buddhism, but Japanese Buddhism is Zen. Zen is very different than Indian Buddhism. You can tell if you just read their writings, which are actually, there's a lot fewer of them for very good reason. Zen is kind of an uneasy marriage between Buddhism and Shinto. And we've talked about Shinto on a couple of episodes, most notably the Ninja Scroll episode. Shinto is based as fuck. It is so fucking based. Yes.
Sorry.
It is it's like the ancestor cult is like white Shinto. That's how I would describe those, like the overlap between those two. Shinto is extremely tribal. It's very pre-axial, and it's the Shinto in Zen that makes Zen cool. I like Zen, but it's not normal Buddhism. Bushido depends very much on this kind of hybrid Buddhism. And the reason why nothing like Bushido arose in India or China or anywhere else that Buddhism took root is because of Zen's peculiarity. Because this particular branch of Buddhism became the dominant one in Japan. And the peculiarity of it becomes from the Shinto. So what we like about Bushido is ultimately a pre-axial thing, I think. Again, I'm not an expert on Buddhism nor Japanese history, but that is my take on that. Did you guys want to say anything about that?
Nope.
All right.
Yeah, so I'm not as educated on it as well. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I've got nothing to say really.
Okay. Next question. I think this is directed for me, but yeah, you guys can weigh in for sure. Can you explain your distinction between moral universalism and particularism? Are you saying there is no objective standard on which to judge right from wrong? Wouldn't this lead to each individual person deciding right and wrong for themselves from their own limited perspective? I'll throw that to you guys first.
Wait, say it again. I wasn't paying attention.
It's explain the distinction between moral universalism and particularism. If we are particularists, doesn't this mean that everybody judges right and wrong for themselves?
No, that's not what that means.
No, it's not. I agree. Nomad, did you want to say something about this?
Yeah, I mean, no, that's not what it means. I mean, there is things that are just straight up right and straight up wrong. I mean, like there's not something that you necessarily decide for yourself. I mean, you know, some certain some people that might be a bit, you know, this is actually tough. I wasn't ready for this, but
the questions, so like going forward, are going to be hard ones.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. But yeah, I mean, you know, I mean, like the people that in the world that do bad things, you know that it's bad, and you know, in their own messed up psychology, and it's just like, and you know, they're not doing this bad thing because they think it's right, you know. So it's like you know, the whole I don't know. I don't know how to make the best knowledge of this. Like, say for example, I don't know, like an Islamic terrorist committing some atrocity. You may argue that he thought he was doing it good because he thought like when he died he goes into some paradise. But obviously we know that's bullshit, and we all know that that is a bad thing, regardless of And I know that he deep down beyond that all that brainwashing, it's also a bad thing. Sorry if that's a terrible analogy, but I mean that's the best I could sort of come up with in that time frame.
It's a tough question just to like wrestle with, at the drop of a hat. What I would say about this. So the question again is, if you're not universalist, does that mean that you decide right and wrong? And the question is obviously no. It's a big question though, and I've written extensively about this on Substack. Behind this question is an assumption that objective is the same as universal. And that's not the case. They're two different things. Particularism, so non-universalism, particularism can be objective, right? Like it's fine for me to discipline my son, but not for him to discipline me. That is particularist, non-universal, but it's also objectively true, right? Like what's good for the goose is not good for the gander. That is particularist and objective. And I would say that, so it's a big question. I'm going to try and really run through it here. Moral reasoning itself is not individualistic. It was stated in the question that, if you are not an objective or not a universalist, doesn't that mean that you collapse into individualism? Not in the case of moral reasoning, certainly not. The assumption that if it's not universal, it's every man his own king actually presupposes individualism, right? Like, why can the alternative to universalism not mean that if it's not universal, it's every tribe is its own authority? Well, like, why are we talking about the individual? We could just be talking about the tribe. And of course, this is exactly what folkishness says. In fact, universalism actually makes you individualist, because what universalism does is it tries to bring all of humanity under a single overarching principle, right? It tries to kind of stuff like an individual or a particular person into an abstract human being, right? What's right for this like abstract like human is what's right for the individual, because this abstract humanity, it just is the individual, right? It's the individual man stripped of all of his particularities. So it's like the individual and humanity as such, or the bare human, is the same thing. So this is why you always see in history, and this is why it's important to look to history to answer these questions and not just philosophy. If you look at history, you see that particularist moral paradigms, things like tribalism, are always communitarian. And if you look at universalist moral paradigms, they are always individualist, and they are fighting against communitarianism. So we can't say that particularism will collapse into individualism. It's actually the other way around. Universalism does. And the last thing I would say about this here that's important to get your head around is that if you are a universalist, then you have to be progressive as a moralist, because morality is not a kind of knowledge. Basically, morality demands action. That's just what it is. And propositions, like, truth statements, don't demand action. They only describe things. And a description cannot prescribe anything. This is the old is-ought problem. So morality is fundamentally a set of commands, and commands are always non-universal. Like, again, my command to my son is for him alone and not for somebody else's son, right? Commands are non-universal. And if morality is a kind of propositional thing, if it's a kind of knowledge, then this is a problem, because if morality is a kind of knowledge, it means that it's cumulative. It means it gets like more over time. Like, I mean, we learn more, we get smarter, we get better over time. There's absolutely no branch of knowledge that has gone in a different direction ever. Like we don't still use geocentrism. We're not still Aristotelians in terms of physics. or we don't use alchemy or astrology. We use astronomy. We use chemistry, not alchemy, like that kind of thing. If all of these branches of knowledge are cumulative, so if you think that morality is a branch of knowledge that is universal, then you have to be a progressive. And this means that pretty much every moral paradigm that we regard as good and true, like whether it's Christianity or whether it's even like classical liberalism, has been superseded. And that's obviously wrong. That's obviously not the case. So if you're a universalist, you have to be a progressive, and that means you're wrong. So that's what I would say about that.
Yeah,
All right,
that's yeah, very well put, Mike. Yeah, well done. Yeah,
we've got some other questions that were put into the chat after we started. They're pretty quick, so let's bang them out. Dave, do you plan to continue the daily practice playlist?
Yeah, someday. I have a way I want to do it. I kind of want to redo them now that I'm a little bit better with filming everything. Like,
Dave,
you're breaking up, Dave.
Check 1, check 2. Yeah. I plan to do it, but I want to redo the old ones now that I'm better at doing film.
All right. Next question, Mike. What is your favorite Imperium Press title? I guess I would say pretty obviously it's The Ancient City. That was an important text for me. We published it and put it on the map. It was basically forgotten until we got to it. So that is a key book for us, and everybody needs to read it. But more than that, what I would say is that I actually have, and I've mentioned this before, because I live in Australia and bushfires are a real threat around here, I have a bushfire preparedness kit that is a box of things where if I need to run out the door in 90 seconds or we'll all die, it's a box of everything that I need. And in this box, I have a few books, only Imperium books. And the Imperium book, I pulled them out for this episode. The books that I have are Havamal and Norse Proverbs, the Studies in Reaction, Ajax, Study in Reaction, The Ancient Family, which is basically an excerpt from The Ancient City. I have the Genghis Khan biography, and I have Hagakure. So if you only buy a handful of books from Imperium, that would be Mike's recommendation. Okay, next question. Do you guys know much about library science? Would it be worthwhile to make Urbit indexing systems for the folk/clan for an alternative pedagogy? I gotta say, I do not understand this question.
A little too galaxy brain for me right now.
Yeah, it's to do with Urbit stuff, and that is kind of above my pay grade at this time.
Yeah, dude, you got to be a little bit more retarded, bud. Come on.
Yeah. Okay. Next question. Where is Culture Dads 99? We pre-record these episodes now. We're a couple of weeks ahead because it's just smarter to do it that way. So Culture Dads 99 is in the bag. We've recorded it. It's on a really awesome topic that we did last week, Dave. I think this is going to be one of the episodes that we look back on and say, that was a real fucking banger. It's coming. Culture Dads 99 is coming. All right. What would be the differences between the Roman/Greek family/ancestor cult and the Germanic domestic religion? I haven't been able to find very much about a Germanic hearth cult. Well, there definitely is a Germanic hearth cult. We have found a book that is in Norwegian that has a lot of information about this, that actually compares the Germanic hearth cult to the Chinese ancestor cult and other things. We at some stage will translate that. We've got a machine translation, but we need to get a human to translate it to put it out. There is information out there. It's much more scarce than the information on the Roman ancestor cult. I would say overall, in broad strokes, the Germanic hearth cult looks a lot more like a fertility cult. There's a lot of icons and fertility symbols and phalluses and stuff that's a little weird, to be honest. Stuff that's a little bit weird to us today involved in the Germanic hearth cult. But for the most part, I mean, the broad strokes are very much the same. It's based on a sacred fire. It's all of the laws related to how the family works and who's involved and all of that. Like it's patrilocal and patrilineal and all of that stuff. That's all the same. What else was I going to say about it? It's there's a substantially similar. Oh yeah, I was going to say that the main sort of what do you call it? The main celebration or whatever, like the main festal thing that you do in the Germanic hearth cult is a shared meal, just as it is in the Roman and Greek. So I mean, this institution is largely unchanged between the different branches, between the German and the Germanic and the Celtic and the Roman and the Greek. It's one of the most conservative institutions of all of Indo-European studies. So there are some differences. As I say, it's a little bit more fertility cult-like, but there are a lot of similar things. So, we're gonna put out some stuff on this. We're gonna help you guys out with actually constructing your hearth cult. It's just gonna take a little while because we only so many people. So, next question: Are the House of Stuart the rightful kings of England? All right, Nomad, you're an Englishman.
Right.
Why don't you weigh in on this?
I mean, there is no real monarchy, as far as I'm concerned, in this country. There hasn't been since the Norman Conquest. So, it's not so much. I say that because I just don't feel like I've really grown up in the monarchy. I don't feel the Windsors are, what a monarchy should be. It's not so much I'm against the idea of monarchy. I mean, if you want to bring back, King Alfred, then great. But basically, yeah, I just, like I said, I mean, every royal we've had since the defeat of the Saxons in 1066, I just don't think is a real royal, basically. So,
Dave, you have a take on this?
No, I don't even know who that is.
Yeah, so what they're talking about, when we did the Cromwell episode, the Stuarts are basically the house that Cromwell replaced, right? The Charles I, the Alec Guinness character in the movie. I would say that the monarchy is not legitimate today because it is not pagan. I guess it's as simple as I would put it. No matter how far back you go, no matter how long the usurper has been sitting on the throne, they're still a usurper, and their child, like the legitimacy does not, like the long usage of time does not confer legitimacy onto a dynasty. Otherwise, we basically have to say, like, if we're going to extend that principle, basically it means that like liberalism is legitimate because it's ruled over us for however many centuries. That's completely illegitimate. So I would say no, the House of Stuart is not the rightful dynasty of England because it never was, actually. Not that Cromwell came and replaced it, not that Cromwell basically established like parliamentarism and that's valid. It's not that. It's that it was never valid in the first place. So I think I agree substantially with Wessex Nomad on this. We're coming up to the end here. What's your favorite medieval weapon?
Favorite medieval weapon? Oh man. So are we talking aesthetically, or are we talking like what would I take in the battle?
That's the question as stated.
All right, let's go with what I would take in the battle. Well, what I would take in the battle is obviously a pole arm of some kind, because we watch TV, we watch all this stuff, we see lots of swords. Swords are cool, but swords are for that's a sidearm. That's not what you want. You want, if you're going into battle, if you're like Dave, medieval battle right now, what do you take? I would take some type of pole arm, such as a halberd or a guisarme. I would probably take a halberd. Or actually, I would take a lucerne hammer. So lucerne hammer is it's a little bit shorter than some of the other ones, meaning that a lot of times you can wield it in one hand and also wield a shield. But if you go two-handed with the lucerne hammer, Number one, it has a point that you could stab with a spear. It has a bill hook, and it also has a hammer. So it's a tool that you could use for any type of thing. So that's what I would go with.
I'm gonna be boring and say sword because I know I've always thought swords are cool. You know, I mean, growing up, I had my dad had like a little collection of swords in our front room. So yeah, sword, typical sword and shield.
What kind of sword though?
Oh, I can't tell you what sort. I didn't really. I mean, I just used to love just like picking them up in my hand. Like there's this one that was particularly really heavy, and like yeah, on the I don't know the structure of a sword. You know, like where you put your hand and there's that bit at the bottom that's like it's like I had this massive like heavy ball, and the point of that was like you'd use that to sort of whack around someone's head and like you sort of like you thrust it forward to stab somebody, and then you'll like launch it back just to smash someone in the head with that massive weight on the bottom of the sword and this sort of thing. And it had like a really sort of thick blade that could do some really serious damage. So, like it was heavy and thick. I was like, oh, that's awesome. Like you can just imagine bringing that into battle and just like absolutely smashing everyone around you. You know?
If I'm going with a sword, it's got to be something that has something that protects my hand, some sort of basket. But if we're going just aesthetically, I love the Kriegmesser or a Messer.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Aesthetically, I would say either a halberd or a mace. Those are very medieval. But in terms of practicality, I'm not an expert on this, and I'm open to being corrected. My understanding is that a lot of medieval knights went into battle both with a sword and a bow. So if you're looking at like range plus short range, like long range fighting plus short range fighting, that guy is going to win. Because he's dually armed, and I think that's a valid answer. But if it's only one, I would go with the sword as well, because I don't know a whole lot about hand-to-hand or like weapons combat, but I think the sword is probably one of the most effective. Okay, we're getting last two. What do you guys think about the Ora Linda? Dave, do you have a take on this?
Horseshit.
Yeah.
Completely fake fabrication, nonsense. Made up, and it's a forgery, a piece of crap.
Yeah, I don't know what that is, so I just take your word for it, Dave.
Yeah, feminist horse crap.
All right, okay, cool.
Yeah. Last question here. Unfortunately, I can't really answer it. What are your thoughts of Jeremy McKenzie and the group Diagolon up here in Canada? I didn't have a chance to look at this because it came in as we were streaming. I don't know, too long, didn't read. I can't get the facts of it as we're streaming here. I guess I don't have a take on this. But that is the last question. Do you guys know anything about that?
Is it like a band or something?
No, it's like something to do with like a podcaster who's in legal trouble or something.
No,
I don't know anything about it, so unfortunately I can't give you a take.
What did he do, or don't you know?
I didn't see. The only thing I could find on it, or the first thing I clicked on, really was just like a long article that gave too much detail for me to digest it in 5 seconds.
Oh, boring. Ask us about bands or something next time.
Yeah, but that was the last question. So here we are, 3 hours plus. We got through all the questions, boys. I didn't think we were going to. And Wessex Nomad going the distance. He came on at the very beginning, and he's with us here at the end.
What a stud!
We have a winner. Yeah, I mean, it's been a very base couple of weekends. You know, last weekend I was at a moot with Woden's Folk. I don't know if you know who they are. Heathen group in Britain. I think they got sectors in America. Last night I was with Tom Rousel's Blot and Herf, and now I'm here. So yeah, it's been good.
Nice. We actually had one last question sneak in at the end here, which I can answer. Mike, I'm sorry, when's Mike releasing music from the KDADS end credits? So let me just explain what that is. The answer is we are working on something that will allow me to release this music. I don't want to say anything more about it than that. We got something cooking that's going to be fucking awesome. But as ever, we got a lot of irons in the fire. So, you know, Hearthfire is about to launch, and that's been a long time coming. So one thing at a time. But yeah, what that music is, when I first got to Australia and I didn't have anything, I didn't know anybody, I didn't have a job, I didn't have anything to do. I was just like, yeah, here I am. I arrive in like January, which is fucking the hottest month in Australia. And it's like 45, 46, 47 degrees Celsius out there. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but it's got to be at least 115. It's ridiculous. Fucking ridiculous. I was just like, here I am, a Canadian, just huddled for dear life around the air conditioning system, and I was just so uncomfortable and sweaty and disgusting. I was like, I have to write an album that describes in music how I feel right now. So I wrote the heaviest desert rock sludge metal fucking electric wizard thing that I could muster, and I'm still very happy with it. I think it's one of the best things I've done, and that track is the closing track from that album. It's actually it's a reimagining of the Japanese folk song Sakura.
That's cool. I like it.
Which is this like pling plong ding 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 song. It's awesome. It's great. It's a beautiful song, but it's like this 11 or like 15-minute sludge metal track reimagining of that Japanese folk song.
Some dope smoker shit.
It's some dope smoker shit. Yeah, the intro, you don't hear it on when we play it as an outro, but the intro to that song is like 4 minutes of the same riff, just going over it, the same two notes over and over again. I think this is one of the best things I've done. In terms of it getting released, it will definitely see the light of day at some point. We're waiting until one of our projects launches, but that's going to happen. So yeah, the answer is someday it will happen.
All right. All right, let's wrap it up. I gotta get going. I'm out of steam here. This is a marathon. But love all you culture dads and culture moms. We love you guys. Love and blessings to all of our friends that popped on. Oh my God, what a star-studded cast. I told you guys at the beginning, don't sleep on the Culture Dad Network, dude. The K-Dad cabal is far-reaching. It's worldwide.
We've got pull.
We got pull and push. We are whatever that means. That's a weird thing to say, but all right. Yeah. So anyway, so shout out, blessings and hails to all of our friends that showed up. Roland, Brendo, Golden One, PDQ, freaking Jolly Heretic, our boy Wessex Nomad, who's still here. Did I forget somebody?
I think you got them all.
Yeah, everybody, man. What a fucking awesome show. A lot of great questions, a lot of great answers.
Dimes. Yeah, Dimes was on too. Yes.
How did I forget Dimes? I'm sorry. How did I forget Dimes? He's the best voice in show business, that guy.
Yo, Blood Satellite has the best bants in the biz. Even better than us, I would say.
Oh, they're hilarious. They're fucking
Actually,
wild.
I don't know. I don't know. I can't say that in good faith, but they are so good. They got such good bands. Awesome.
They're fantastic. So shout out Dimes, my boy Dimes, which he's actually going to be, you guys will see. I don't want to give too much, but you guys will see. Me and Dimes are going to actually collab on something real here soon. So anyway, guys, if you're not signed up already, make sure to go over to culturedads.com. That's culture with a K, culturedads.com, so you can get signed up to the Gumroad, follow the links, so you get so many great perks, such as hardback copies of the Western Canon series and beyond. Poetic Edda, Ancient City, Indo-European Household, Populist Delusion. What's Dutton's book? I love Dutton's book. I can't remember what it's called.
Breeding the Human Herd.
Breeding the Human Herd, so on and so forth. You guys already know it's stacked like flapjacks. It's stacked up like your grandmama's flapjacks. You're going to love it. So go over there, get signed up so you can get hardback copies and sit on your shelf forever and ever and help Imperium Press blossom into becoming the institution that they were born to be, their destiny, so they may save the Western canon from those who want to erase it. Fucking scumbags. And you get Culture Dads every single week. How can you beat that? Huh? You can't beat it. So go get signed up over there. Check out what I'm doing over at thebizarchives.com. Buy books. Follow us on Twitter and Telegram at The Bizarchives. And until next time, I'll see you guys here on Culture Dads, Age of Sword and Cassette.